Great. Okay, this meeting of the Borough of Madison Zoning Board of Adjustment is now called to order. This is a regular virtual meeting of April 8, 2021. Can I get an announcement of notice, please?
Let the minutes reflect that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided in the following manner. At the reorganization meeting of the board held on January 14th, 2021, the board by resolution adopted an annual schedule of meetings. On January 15th, 2021, a copy of the schedule of meetings was posted at the bulletin board at the main entrance of the Hartley Dodge Memorial, was sent to the Madison Eagle and the Daily Record, filed with the borough clerk, all in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act. In response to public safety considerations and legal authorization, the Board of Adjustment began conducting its monthly meetings remotely using the Zoom platform, and subsequently separate notices have been published each month advertising of this change and indicating that the procedures and requirements for monitoring such meetings and for making public comment, along with any explanation of the audio muting function of the electronic communications platform being utilized, is provided with detailed information on how to use Zoom and participate, found on the RoseNet webpage.
Thank you. May I get a roll call?
Mr. Dianio?
Here.
Ms. Driscoll?
Here.
Mr. Fitzsimmons?
Here.
Ms. Carr?
Here.
Dr. Paetzel?
Here.
Mr. Santoro?
Here.
Mr. Foster?
Here.
And Ms. Teratelli?
Here.
Thank you.
All right. Well, would you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Fran, do you have our flag? Good job. All right. I pledge allegiance to the
flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good job, everybody. Okay, so first up is minutes for approval. Minutes of approval, see, the minutes are March 11th, the minutes of March 11th. That was the regular meeting. That looked okay to me. Any comments? No?
Nope.
Okay, all in favor of the minutes of March 11 as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, those minutes are approved. Next is the minutes from the special meeting of March 4, 2021. That looked okay to me. Any comment?
Nope.
Okay. All in favor of these minutes as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Okay, these minutes are approved. Next is the minutes of the meeting of March 25th. This looked okay to me.
I had just one comment on the second page.
Okay.
Under case number 20-006. About halfway through down that page, there are two paragraphs that refer to lot 24. I think that should say lot 25. One paragraph begins with the owner of, one begins Mr. Azzolini.
Okay.
The owner of lot 24 is that the paragraph you're questioning?
Yeah, I think that should say the owner of lot 25 instead of 24.
Well, 24 was 295. And
No,
it's
24 is the big lot with the auto dealer on it. The 25 and 26 are the applicants.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah. So lot 25 is number 295.
Okay,
I think we just replaced 24 with 25 in those two paragraphs.
Mm-hmm.
got that?
Got it.
Thanks for pointing that out.
Yep.
Any other comments? Okay, all in favor of these minutes with the change discussed, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, these minutes are approved. Okay, we have one, Angelica, we're not gonna do that tonight, are we, Gary? We're gonna wait on that? You're muted. Gary?
They're both being carried to the next meeting on the 29th.
Okay, so then we don't have any resolutions for memorialization. Okay, in terms of scheduling and procedural matters, I guess we should announce first what we're going to hear tonight. So we're going to start off with Madison Movie Development and hear testimony there and have a Q&A. And then there's a number of applications that are carried. So we're going to carry 3 Old Greenhouse Lane to a later date. It would be the 29th. 241 Woodland Road is going to be carried to the 29th. We will hear 13 Lewanika Terrace. We will hear 51 Canterbury. We'll try to get the 4 Laurel Way. And then the next one here is Sealy, 8 Old Greenhouse, that's carried to May 13th. Then we will try and hear 107 Greenwood Avenue tonight. And the remaining applications are going to be carried to 429. So that's 106 Central, 6 Carteret Court, 104 Pomeroy, 152 Lewanika Way will be carried to 429. And then Gary, want to talk about a special meeting?
Yeah, it was suggested that we schedule a special for May 6th, which is the first Thursday. And I forget, Rob, were you available on the 13th or the 6th? Were you available on the 6th?
Hey, Gary, hold on one second, please.
I can't remember. We talked the other day.
Yeah, no, I'm not available on the 6th. I'm going to be in Texas for a
Okay,
wedding, family wedding. I am available on May 13th.
okay, because Mr. Wolfson has the reverse availability. So I guess if we, hopefully where we would be is we'd hear from Mr. Phillips at that meeting. He could be questioned. And I guess if there's a transcript, Mr. Simon could ask more questions on the 13th. Peter, is that okay?
That's fine with us, yeah.
Okay. Rob, do you get that?
Right, so,
And
so
then on the
Paul-
13th, well, Mr. Wolfson, could someone cover that if perhaps we get to Mr. Simon's planner at that meeting?
I have not specifically discussed that with my client, but I don't consider myself irreplaceable. Why don't
Okay.
I suggest that we carry it to the 6th?
Yeah, we carry it to the 6th, but the intent is that, because the other wrinkle here is that the board's planner, Mr. Stern, is going to be away for the second half of May and early June. So he'll be back for, Russell, you'll be back for the regular June meeting, is that correct?
Correct. I'll be around
Okay.
for the 10th.
So we have that gap there.
Mhm.
But I guess we wouldn't be able to do a special in between for the planners because we want Mr. Stern to hear it. But anyway, for now, we'll, well, let's see, I guess we have the 29th is on the schedule, but for now I'd say we can carry it to the 29th and schedule a meeting for June 6th. Does that make sense, Joe?
May 6th.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think we should carry that. And
we can carry it to 20. I mean, I would just carry this to May 6th because we got a lot of residentials that we already carried to the 29th. So that'll take that whole meeting. So we'll carry, well, we're not done tonight, but when we finish, for now, we'll be carrying this application to a special on June 6th. Is that agreed?
May.
May
I'm
6th.
sorry, May. Losing track. So if we could get a resolution by the board to schedule a special meeting for Thursday, May 6th?
Okay, can we get a motion to do that?
7:30, sir?
Yes, yes.
So moved.
The second on that?
second,
Okay, all in favor of a special meeting on the 6th of May, 7:30, please say aye.
aye,
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so that's set.
That's added to our calendar. We, of course, have another meeting before that on April 29th. Okay, that's, I think, the scheduling for the moment.
Mr. Hall, Mr. Santoro, just to confirm, if somebody, Mr. Wolfson as well, if someone just could let me know as soon as possible with regard to May 13th, so that if I need to have a witness available, that can happen. Thanks.
Yeah, I think you should have a witness
Yeah.
available, but
Because we're gonna get started on the planner, hopefully, on the 6th. And then that would lead into you and your planner.
Right, so I would cross Mr. Phillips on the 13th and then present my planner on the
I think
13th.
that's the way to go. Does that sound
I'm
right?
not here on the 13th, Peter. You know that.
oh, Paul, you're not available on the 13th?
That's correct.
Yeah. Yeah,
Sorry, I did not recall that. Thanks, Paul.
What about 4/29? Is that possible? I know we're gonna do residential.
I'm available on the 29th.
Yeah, Mr. Santoro, I have a special meeting in another municipality that evening.
Okay.
But certainly the applicant could proceed with Mr. Phillips's direct testimony, of course.
Okay,
on the 29th, Rob? Or-
Right, so April 29th, I'm unavailable, but I have no objection if Mr. Phillips presents his direct testimony on that date.
And then you would cross him on the 6th, you would be available?
No, I'm
No,
not
you're not
available on the
available on the
6th.
6th.
We'd find another date in May. I
yeah, it
think.
might be better to stick with 5/6 and 5/13. All right, well, we got
We'll
it,
just work it out when we get there.
all right?
Thank you.
Like trying to herd cats, right? Okay. So with that, we should move into old business, Madison Movie Development LLC. And Mr. Wilson, do you want to talk about what you'll cover?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members, board professionals. Peter Wolfson of Dave Pitney for the continuation of this hearing. You'll recall we were last before you on March 11th, at which time Mr. Keller returned and answered questions from board members, board professionals, and members of the public. Also, testimony was provided at that meeting from various municipal groups, including the Downtown Development Commission and Historic Preservation Commission. In advance of tonight's hearing, the applicant submitted some exhibits to address some of the board's recommendations, which will be followed up tonight by some brief testimony by Mr. Keller. Now, as the board is well aware by this point, we are proposing some improvements on our neighbor's property, and the exhibits reflect an agreement that was reached with our neighbor. Subsequent to that, the neighbor has requested some further changes, which led to a meeting yesterday on the site that Mr. Keller can preview. We will be submitting some revised exhibits based on the latest agreement with the neighbor in advance of the next meeting. So the proposal is that Eric will speak to those exhibits that are relevant that we submitted in advance. He can preview, if you like, what yesterday's agreement was, and then he'll be available for questioning. I know Mr. Simon had reserved an opportunity due to his lack of availability at an earlier meeting.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'd like to recall Eric Keller, who's been sworn already, and you've heard from on a couple of occasions.
Excuse me, if I could, Joe, since Helen and I are recused on this, should Fran or Michael take us off the panel just to be formal about it?
Yes.
Yes, we will be removing you momentarily.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, this is the court reporter. Who are the two board members that are recused? Mr. Foster and who was it?
Ms. Carr.
Ellen Carr.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
It's K-A-A-R.
Yes, yeah, I heard that earlier. Thank you. I'll change that.
Mr. Chairman, before we hear from Eric, I just do want to acknowledge, since our last appearance, we have received updated memorandum, both number 3, one from your planner, Mr. Stern, dated April 2, 2021, and one from your engineer, Mr. Harrington, dated April 5, 21. And also subsequent to our last appearance, we have received Morris County Soil Conservation District approval dated March 10, 2021. And I see on that the board and your engineer are copied. So I just want to put that on the record.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Eric, good evening.
Yes, sir.
Can you please describe those changes that we are proposing on the exhibits that are still relevant? after yesterday's meeting with your neighbor?
Certainly. We had submitted 5 different plan sheets, that being sheet 4 of the site plans, which is layout, grading, and utility plan. Sheet 5, which is the soil erosion plan, that was submitted in a reduced size with a logistics plan. There was no changes to the underlying soil erosion plan. Sheet 6, the landscaping and lighting plan. Sheet 7, the parking layout and vehicle turning plans. And sheet 10, the construction details. On sheet 4, we added timber guide rail. I anticipate that will stay. And I will talk about the changes that we anticipate based on our meeting with Mr. Romanelli yesterday. We have also modified the stormwater design for the project, adding pipe storage within the building, which will be, all the roof leaders will be connected to that underground system. The seepage pits in the enclosure at the rear of the building are generally the same, though they are a little bit shallower than previously designed because we had a higher groundwater table than we expected. We did add bollards on either side of the stair along the east side of the shared access drive, where that existing step will be reconstructed that comes out of the Mark Anthony building. We showed on our plans the 8-foot access aisle for access to the dumpster at the rear of the proposed building. We have graphically shown an area where the van for the British Home Emporium can park to illustrate that it does not conflict with either the access aisle for access to our enclosure or conflict with the fire lane that exists on the building on lot 11. We have also showed the refuse and recycling totes that will be used for our project. Those are shown as small rectangles within the enclosure. And it shows that we can accommodate at least 12 of those within that enclosure. It doesn't mean that we'll use 12, but we have sufficient space to, excuse me, to accommodate the refuse and recycling pickup for this building.
And Eric, if I could, I'm sorry,
Yes,
jump in real quick. The sheets 4, 6, and 7 are all, as I read it, revised March 26, 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Yes, and sheet 10 is, well, sheet 10 is a new sheet, but they all carry a last revised date of March 26.
Okay, I didn't see the revision. Okay, just for the record. So we
Yep,
have the
nope.
same thing.
Good,
Thank you.
good point. The last thing, and Mr. Stern brought this up, I believe, we'll be modifying our plan to reflect the dumpster enclosure details as shown on the architecturals. What is shown on the architectural plans with a louvered screen wall with double gates will be reflected on our plans. I also note that the, excuse me, the access gates into the enclosure will have a self-closing mechanism. On sheet 6, which is a landscaping and lighting plan, we added 2 pole-mounted lights in the parking area on the adjacent property. Again, those will remain, though they will probably end up being in slightly different locations. And we will adjust the location of the one light closest to the building on lot 23 so that it's clear that there is not a conflict with the, well, in the rear of the second floor balcony through that structure. And we'll also work with Madison Electric on the removal of the existing Cobra head on the utility pole closest to the access drive, as that will no longer be necessary with the lights both in the parking lot and on our building. We had shown some shrubs and a shade tree on the adjacent parking lot, adjacent to lot 12. Those are going to be redesigned. We may not have as many, we may not have any. I'm not sure until we work out a design of the parking lot. On sheet 7, we've added, this is a request from a prior meeting, we've added an exhibit of a vehicle exiting the garage. I will note that the garage opening, Mr. Gertler has been able to modify the design somewhat, and the opening at the face of the building is now 19 feet, as opposed to the prior plan, which had shown, I'm sorry, 19 feet. It used to be 18. We have also provided mirrors on each side of the garage door to help identify approaching vehicles. I also note that the cellar level walls for that parking area are not solid. They are open for ventilation purposes, and being partially open also allow for some visibility for approaching vehicles. I also want to note that the amount of traffic that is going past our garage door is limited to the existing parking spaces on lot 11, on lots 9 and 11, which is the adjacent parcels to the north, where there's about 13 parking spaces for the residential building and a couple for the commercial. So there is not a lot of activity going past our garage door. Sheet 10 is a new sheet. We had some additional details that were added. The pole-mounted fixtures, the garbage, the refuse and recycling totes, and a timber guide rail. I will note the hairpin striping and the bollard details were previously shown and are still shown on sheet 9. That sheet did not change, which is why we did not submit that. So that's a summary of the plan changes that are shown for 5 plan sheets that are were submitted last revised March 26th.
Eric, you indicated that you're going to be redesigning the lot 23 configuration. That's as a result of the meeting that just occurred.
Yes. We had we scheduled a site meeting yesterday. In attendance were Mr. Romanelli, Bob Vogel, and Dennis Harrington from the borough, myself, and representatives of the developer were there. And we had a very productive discussion of the parking layout. Mr. Romanelli is a great restaurateur, but is not an engineer. And I don't think that until he saw the alternate concept that we had proposed based on comments from the board of putting landscaping up by his building, did he realize the extent of what we had proposed and what we thought he had agreed to. So based on that, Mr. Romanelli was concerned about accommodating his tenants and providing enough parking, and essentially wants to keep the existing paved, broken asphalt gravel area that he has now to park vehicles. Obviously, it would be the pavement would be reconstructed to have a nice updated wearing surface, paved wearing surface, and would be striped accordingly with the timber guide rail and the lights that we had agreed upon. He also did agree to allow us to put in the infiltration trench along the downhill side of the parking lot. We had offered that, and he had concerns about it, and after discussing it, and I think with a lot of help from Mr. Harrington, understood that it was something that would be a benefit, but would not cause him added maintenance. So Now, this redesign of what we have shown on our plans to date is likely to generate some variances from the borough code. I'm only saying this at this point because we haven't designed it out. We haven't worked out the details. We only met yesterday morning. But section 195-32.4G as in George, which is part of the CBD 1 zoning section, requires a 10-foot setback between parking and an adjacent residential use. The use on lot 12, which is that landlocked parcel to the north of lot 23, is residential in use. It doesn't comply with that setback today. We will have some variable setback to that property line. There's also likely a variance for providing landscaping that encompasses 10% of the parking area, which is set forth in section 195-25.15C and subsection M as in Mary 1. We will provide some. How much, I don't know, but I do not believe that it will be 10% of the parking lot, which is what we had on the current plan, which is unacceptable to the property owner. We also, while we were out there yesterday, we met with Mr. O'Brien of the Borough DPW to talk about refuse and recycling containers for Mr. Greco's property, which is lot 11. We've had discussion before. These cans and containers are lined up at the back of the existing building. We had presented a plan to Mr. Greco to show a 3-sided fenced enclosure that would be essentially between where the van parking space would be and our own enclosure, where we would have a 3-sided fenced enclosure for the residents on lot 11 and presumably the other lots that are served by that, so that these can be contained and placed into an area. Mr. O'Brien confirmed that the borough's refuse and recycling carter, Roselli, would have no issue in picking up the cans and containers from that area. And that enclosure would not impede or impact upon the existing fire lane that's located on the south side of the building on lot 11. And that's the summary of where we've been and what we did yesterday.
Thank you, Eric. Do you have anything else?
I don't,
Okay.
unless I missed something, Peter.
No, I think you covered it all, Mr. Chairman. He's available for questioning. I think Mr. Simon had asked specifically that he have an opportunity to do that.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
Of course.
You've addressed the proposal for lot 11 to handle all those trash containers, which happen to be, like about 24 of them. But what about for the Romanelli property, lot 22 and 23, where when you go there, there's usually plastic bags sticking out of the trash containers and also on the pavement. Can something be done for those properties? Did you have that discussion with Mr. Romanelli?
Well,
excuse me, I do recall that the testimony at a prior hearing when it was stated that Mr. Romanelli did not want the enclosures, but did you just further discuss that issue with him?
we did not. I did take some pictures when I was out there yesterday And I note that for lot 23, which is a consignment shop, they had four or five cans on the concrete pad at the back of their building, which will remain as it is, which will still be accessible. There were some plastic bags underneath the balcony on the lot 22, which is the Mark Anthony building. And then they had two large totes up against the retaining wall. And we're still preserving space for them to control those. So there was a greater, our understanding was a greater emphasis on lot 11 as it was very disorganized. It was very haphazard, and there were a lot of cans. And that's why we focused on lot 11. I'm not sure that, there's, anything more that, for lots 22 and 23, they seem to be very organized and they are on their own property. I don't see, a need for us. We're fixing their parking lot. If there's an issue with their garbage, I mean, that's something I think would be better addressed directly with the property owner.
Mr. Stern, we certainly will speak to Mr. Romanelli and indicate that there was a request that those bags be contained in a container.
Thank you. I agree with Mr. Keller regarding the magnitude with lot 11, but on my many frequent inspections of this and just walking around town and taking a look behind lots 22 and 23, there is a problem, and this seems like the appropriate time to address this issue, as both of those properties are part of this application. So it'd be nice to further discuss that with Mr. Romanelli, and maybe it just means some additional totes, and keeping everything consistent to give it a better appearance back there.
We'll discuss that with him.
Okay, thank you. There was also another issue regarding circulation. If you recall, there is a one-way pavement marking from Main Street underneath that porte cochere, so to speak, of British Fine Emporium, or British Emporium, whatever it's called now. Excuse me for not having that exact title. But that kind of conflicts with the diagonal parking spaces that service lot 11, the building on lot 11. Was that discussed with the owner of lot 11?
Peter, I'm going to defer to you. I mean, I don't know what, I didn't have any direct conversations with Mr. Greco.
We did not. We explored whether there are other actions that could be taken to address what you and perhaps others perceived as a problem back there. We've observed that traffic flows both ways, in and out, despite the arrow being painted there. And we've determined, based on an Oprah request, that there's no prior approval that seems to dictate any particular flow of traffic. So, for all those reasons, the situation is what it has always been and will not change as a result of our application.
Does it make sense to put up a sheet so we could see where you're proposing that the lot 11 enclosure would be, and then also show lots 22, 23? I just want to ask a question about that. Do you have that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So I guess we'll have to mark this plan sheet.
Well, I don't know what the board's practice is, Gary. I don't know if things are submitted at least 10 days ahead. Does that constitute part of the record, or do you?
Yeah, well, if we should identify them at least, whether they're marked or not. That's why if you have a revision date, is this something that was in the supplemental submit filing?
I didn't think we submitted this, Peter.
I've been looking at your sheet, the new sheets, the revised sheets 4, 6, 7. You can't use that? Oh, this is a bigger area.
Yeah,
Why don't you identify this, and
I-
you haven't seen this before?
I assume that you were using one of the exhibits, Eric. Excuse me.
well, Mr. Chairman, the chairman asked about the refuse on lot 11, I believe.
Go
I'd
go
like,
ahead.
I'd like
and
to see
just-
that and then also double back to the testimony about lot 22 and 23 and what's going to get done and what's not going
Right.
to get done there.
I think all of that's shown on the sheet 4. Because that's what I've been looking at as you talked. Can you pull that up?
Well, here is sheet 4.
Yeah, I think that shows the 2 areas that Mr. Santora asked about.
Okay, I will,
Joe, am I correct?
Yeah, that's fine. I can look at both of them, but I just want to understand where the new trash enclosure exactly is going to be relative to build, on lot 11 and the applicant's structure.
which is why I pulled up the other concept plan because
Yeah, flip back to that if
Okay, sorry. I thought it was right
That's
shown on
okay.
here.
that's all right.
at
Isn't
the
it
time
right?
that we made the submittal, we had not received, sign off from Mr. Greco. So.
Okay.
All right, so this is sheet 1 of 1.
Okay, it highlights it, okay.
Yeah, and it's entitled Exhibit 4, 14 Lincoln Place, Lot 11 Conceptual Improvements.
And Mr. Keller, that will be incorporated into a future revised plan set?
Yes, sir. This
Sheet
this
4.
sheet is dated March 3rd of 2021. And it is at a scale of 1 inch equals 10, same as the rest of the site plans. This shows all of lot 11, which I'm highlighting with my virtual hand. Our building is located on the southern side or the left side of the sheet. We have the 8-foot access aisle. We have the, van parking area. And then this shaded area here is the enclosure for the refuse and recycling for lot 11. And it is 3-sided. There's a fence along the eastern side, the southern side, and then up near the enclosure itself. And this area is of sufficient size to accommodate the cans and containers that exist at the back of the building.
Okay.
What's the separation from the back of the proposed new building? Yeah, right there.
Yep.
9.2?
9.2 feet and 10 feet at the internet. All right. Mr. Chairman, you wanted to look at the other plans that we submitted? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just want to get a read on what's likely going to look like now that Mr. Romanelli has given you feedback. That just to make sure I understand what's going to happen, what's not going to happen there.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. Mr. Hall, we should mark this as an exhibit? Or are we just going to submit it?
We're gonna submit it with another submission,
Okay,
and it will be in advance of the hearing in compliance with the requirements.
I
okay.
assume it will be reflected on revised sheet 4, wouldn't it?
Yeah, yes, it will.
Because that's our record copy of plans, and if it's changing, it should go there. Ultimately, okay.
Okay. So let me zoom in on the parking here. This is sheet 4 of the revised plans that were last revised March 26th. What the property line is this heavy line here, which is adjacent to the building. There are the existing asphalt and broken asphalt extends pretty much up to the property line. There is a concrete sidewalk along the side of the dwelling on lot 12 that encroaches onto Mr. Romanelli's property. It apparently has been there for some time. But this area that we were looking to create some open space is currently used for parking. What Mr. Romanelli is seeking is that this parking area basically be returned to what it is today and allow him to continue to park in this area up to generally the limits of today.
Would that be stacked parking? How would that work? You show 7 spaces, that'd have to be all reconfigured, I take it.
Yeah, the access location would not change. I mean, currently, if you go out there, I mean, when we went out there, we were out there yesterday, there were some vehicles that are stacked in tandem parking. And I think that is what Mr. Romanelli is seeking to maintain, because he has a demand for parking, and that's how it has, to my understanding, has occurred for many, many years.
I just want to say that today's inspection and on my many inspections of the property, there always seems to be tandem parking occurring. Here's a thought to perhaps depict that on the drawings. There is an overly sized traffic aisle which could more than accommodate the tandem parking that's already occurring there.
We can certainly do that, Mr. Stern.
Would the spaces be striped still?
Yes, I think there needs to be some definition that doesn't occur today. But again, that's something that, the specific layout of that will be subject to discussion with Mr. Romanelli.
So essentially, what's going to happen is you'll repave that lot, stripe it. You'll put the rail in and the stormwater aspect of it on the right side. You put the gates in. You'll do some lighting.
Well, no, I don't think they're going to put the railing there if they're going to pave up to the building. Eric, am I wrong?
No, we told Mr. Romanelli we can't pave everything. We
Okay.
want to provide a timber guide rail. We want to provide some positive reinforcement of the edge of the pavement, because there is, we're not proposing to curb it. And we also want to protect that infiltration trench so that cars don't pull into it. So we will still have the timber guide rail along the northern edge of the parking lot, and we're still going to fence this parking lot. Besides the gate, there is a fence, a decorative fence.
Okay. I thought you were going to pave that area. Sorry.
Well, we're going to pave more of it than this plan shows, but we're not going to pave everything.
Okay, so the railing would move then, at least.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, the
that's
guide
what
rail, the guide rail will move from where it's shown, but we're going to have some area to place the guide rail, to place the infiltration trench, and to place that light pole.
Okay.
Will you provide that? I think it is one required tree. I think that's.
I'm
10
gonna try.
spaces or something, I believe.
It's one, wait, I believe it's one per 10 spaces. I wrote it down someplace and can't find that particular note. I think we're going to be able, I don't know if it may be a shade tree, because the area I think that's going to be most likely to place it is over here by the utility pole. And we have utility wires that go off to the north, that go off to the building and then go off to the east. So I need to maintain clearance, but it may be more of an ornamental tree than it is a true full-grown shade tree, because that's going to get up into the power lines. So I'm going to see where we can put it, but space is very tight out here,
Sure.
especially with the utility poles.
Okay. I think I understand. Thank you.
You're welcome, Mr. Chairman.
That's all of Eric to
Questions?
direct, Mr. Chairman.
I had one other quick question, Eric. The area at the back of lot 11, I think previously it was indicated that would be repaved. Is that still the case, or? Yeah, that area there.
Right in here. I noted that in going back through some notes. I have to confirm with the applicant as to what the agreement is on that.
Yeah, I think we were told that at the first meeting. I mean, that's in my notes, but
That's
I
my.
didn't see a note on the plan. That's why I asked.
Yeah, I think so.
It was on the memo I did back on March 2nd also.
I would think, Mr. Chairman, with the construction activities along the rear of the proposed building, the new trash enclosure, that area is going to get fairly well disturbed just by the construction activities and would require repaving on that basis.
Okay.
And Dennis, while you're talking, the changes down by 21 and 22, they would seem to impact on the stormwater management. I forget where that was left off, but on that.
The stormwater management as proposed is that infiltration trench that Mr. Keller referred to, that is going to remain. We're going to still have an infiltration trench, which is more than what we have today.
Okay.
It will be relocated with the guide rail to follow the existing edge of pavement at Mr. Romanelli's request, so that he doesn't lose any of maneuverability and access to the paved area that he has currently. So we still will have a infiltration trench.
Okay.
And as I understand it, we're also going to be directing a roof leader from, I guess it's the salon, which Mr. Keller was up there, that dark line at the dash there, which currently discharges overland onto the pavement. And we're going to be piping that into the infiltration trench to aid and increase the groundwater recharge and keep more of the stormwater off of the pavement and eliminate any icing possibilities.
Okay, thank you.
And I think, was it said, Mr. Keller, that they were going to do a drain on the driveway, the bottom of the driveway? Did we say that?
No, Mr. Harrington and I discussed that yesterday about putting a drain here. We discussed, we didn't think it was a good idea to take driveway water, bring it into the building and have it come back out. We are taking the roof leaders for the entire building into this interior pipe storage, so that as it exists today, what sheets down this driveway will continue to sheet down the driveway onto lot 11. The issue here is that there's really very, very limited drainage structures in the area. So.
Okay. You concur with that, Mr. Harrington?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I had to unmute. It is still, a request on mine. I understand Mr. Keller's concern, which I get from every builder. They know that it is really not recommended to take water from outside and put it into a building. I would like to keep the discussion going with Mr. Keller. we are widening that driveway. We're regrading it and improving it. And yes, that's where the water does go today. But whenever you repave and curb an area, it might lend itself toward either concentrating the flow or nominally increasing it. So I really would think there might be an opportunity. Even Eric, if I understand we're picking up the roof drain at that corner of the building, the south, I guess it's the northeast corner of the building.
This is
right there.
northeast.
Right. We're going to be picking up that roof leader as well and getting that off of the overland flow and carrying that into the system. It would be a fairly easy construction. Again, I understanding that would be taking outside water into a building, but perhaps we could redirect it somehow and get it into the seepage pit and into the system
So
without causing too much consternation and concern about the exterior water. It's just a great opportunity to take more of this surface runoff and get it into a system, and try to improve the stormwater capture in the area.
why don't I make a suggestion that you take this offline, because you need to update the plans on lot 22, 23, and once you guys discuss this offline, okay, and see what you can come up with. if possible.
Agreed. Thank you.
Agree, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, that's great. All right, board members or Mr. Stern or Mr. Harrington, additional points you want to make or questions from your memos?
No, Mr. Keller covered the garbage, which was I was going to mention, but he got to it in his testimony, so I have nothing additional at this time.
Mr. Stern, how are you doing?
They've answered my questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, the board? No questions from the board?
None here.
Okay. All right, well then, I believe we should go to the public then, and we would start with Mr. Simon, if you would like to take this opportunity to ask questions, now would be the time.
Sure, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. And a couple things. Certainly, first off, I reserve my right. I'll get started asking Mr. Keller questions, but obviously reserving my right to ask him additional questions based on any submissions that are going to be subsequently made to the board in light of the testimony that has been provided this evening.
Absolutely.
Number one. Number two, just to refresh the board's recollection that as I haven't started cross-examining Mr. Keller yet on any topics, that some of the questions I have certainly will go to testimony that he has provided prior to this evening, certainly over, I think, two prior hearings where he gave testimony. Eric, can we start, and I would ask actually, Mr. Chairman, if we can maybe mark, just because I'm going to refer to it, that exhibit that he put up just a little while ago, that one of one that was dated March 3rd, 2021.
March 3rd.
What's that?
March 3rd.
March 3rd, 2021. Yeah. So,
Mr. Chair, does it make sense to wait until we have the redesigned plans and submission? Mr. Simon will have an opportunity to talk about the finally designed plans at that time.
Well, how much detail are you really going to get in a lot of detail, Mr. Simon? Because
no, I mean, the reason, yeah,
it's not filed yet. So.
Right. So the reason, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, the reason why I wanted to bring this back up is that it's the first time that the public has seen a rendering, even as a concept plan, of lot 11. And I wanted just to get an idea of where the traffic goes from Main Street onto lot 11. That was the reason, and where the buildings are in relation to that traffic pattern. So that's why
I think that's relevant. Go ahead.
Yeah. So hey, Eric, Mr. Keller.
Yes.
Hi.
You can call me Eric.
Thank you. I always do.
Rob.
Please, you've called me a lot worse and it's deserving, of course. So, Eric, if with regard to this sheet 1 of 1, and should we mark this something, Peter? How you want to?
Since it's not been submitted, I think that's fine. It could be, I believe we're only up to A2.
So Eric, oh,
I'm sorry.
it's all right.
To do that.
So Eric, with regard to A2, and I think Mr. Wolfson's right, I will reserve, certainly in fairness, most of my questions regarding this concept improvement plan until you submit your more finalized plan per the representation. But I thought it would be a good opportunity in looking at A2 to sort of orient the board and the public. If you can just identify where cars or vehicles enter off of Main Street and whether they go through is it lot 9 to lot 11? I mean, what is shown on this plan A2, just to give the board and the public a better understanding of that.
Lot 11 is located immediately to the north of the subject lot. Lot 10 is the British Home Emporium building. And there is we'll call it a passageway for lack of a better term, that extends along the eastern side of that building on the ground floor, obviously, that connects the parking area on lot 11 with Main Street. There is, I believe, 2 floors above that passageway out to Main Street, which is located on the east side of the building.
And per, I believe Mr. Wolfson stated it earlier this evening, that is it your understanding that passageway supports two-way traffic?
I have never seen vehicles go through there, so I can't opine on how people are using it.
Do you know, Eric, how wide it is?
I don't.
And before we leave this exhibit, is there an opportunity for vehicles, just to orient myself here? So if the parking spaces are on the diagonal on the southern end there, right, on lot 11.
We're calling, I'm sorry, just for orientation purpose.
Sure.
North is to the right. So this is the eastern side.
I'm sorry, yeah. Mhm.
That's the way I've oriented. Main Street is east-west.
Okay, so on the eastern side, I guess, are the parking spaces?
Correct.
And is there a way to access by vehicle is it the west, I guess the western side of the building? Right there?
There's no vehicular access behind the building, as far as I know, no.
And what is contained in that lot 11 building, to your knowledge?
There are residential units.
Is there anything other than residential in that building?
Not that I'm aware of, but I really haven't paid much attention to it.
And with regard to looking still at A2, at that reserved van parking space, right?
Yes.
So that, I think you testified, or somebody stated, I don't want to misstate it, earlier, that it's for the British Home Emporium. That's a British Home Emporium van.
That's my understanding, yes. There was a van parked there yesterday.
And
have any labels on it?
the British Home Emporium building is lot 10, correct?
Correct.
And do you know what the use of that building is?
I don't.
And with regard to the striped reserved parking for the British Home Emporium van on lot 11, is there an agreement in writing, recorded or otherwise, between the owner of lot 10 and the owner of lot 11 to park the lot 10 van on lot 11?
There is.
And I'll just ask you, Peter, is that a recorded agreement, or?
I don't recall.
And Mr. Keller, other than the van, the British Home Emporium van that's parked on lot 11, are there other vehicles that are affiliated with lot 10, British Home Emporium, that are parked on lot 11, whether it's employees, guests, visitors, or deliveries?
I don't know who parks on lot 11. There's no designation or anything.
Do you have any knowledge as to where lot 10 British Home Emporium employees, guests, visitors, or deliveries park?
I don't.
And do you know, and this may be a Peter question, given the passageway under the lot 10 building, British Home Emporium, is there some sort of easement agreement for vehicular ingress and egress or parking between lot 10 and lot 11?
I don't know.
And with regard to the trash enclosure that we're showing on A2 for that's going to be for lot 11, if the British, and I apologize, this will maybe be one of a number of ignorant and potentially dumb questions, but if the British Home Emporium van is parked in the designated area on lot 11, is there going to be an opportunity for a garbage truck to get back to the garbage area, refuse area, for lot 11 and or lot 24?
Well, all I can say is that, based on our meeting with Mr. O'Brien from the Borough DPW, he did not have concerns with garbage truck access to this new enclosure area. He was satisfied with it.
Was he aware of the intention to have a permanent spot for a van parking?
Yes, we discussed it, and as I said, when we were there yesterday, the van was parked generally in that area that we've highlighted on the plan.
Right. No, I understand that, Eric. My question is whether he's aware that that parking of the van is intended to be what I'll call a permanent fixture as part of this site plan.
Well,
has he seen the site plan, or or at least has he seen this A2 yet?
I believe I showed it to him yesterday because we described where the enclosure was. Can you repeat the question?
Sure. I just want to, I'm not trying to trick you, obviously. I just want to know whether when you said that you met with him yesterday and he didn't have a problem with it, did he make that comment knowing that the intention of this application is to have a permanent parking spot for that van as depicted on the site plan?
He's certainly well aware that this is a regular occurrence, that this van is parked there. As Mr. Stern has indicated, he's made numerous site visits, so has Mr. O'Brien. And this van is a fixture in this location. It's not something that's new. All we're doing is showing that the the van can be accommodated in this area without impacting on our access aisle or encroaching into the fire lane. We're not striping the area. Let me be clear about that. We're just showing that there's enough room to park that van and not impede anything else.
Okay, so the intention then of this application is to not stripe a designated spot for the van, but to identify the fact that the van's going to be located in that area?
It was just to, in our discussions with Mr. Greco, was to say, look, there's enough room for your van to park here and not encroach on any of the, the access aisle or the refuse enclosure.
And with regard to recycling, Eric, is this where the recycling is going to be picked up
For the adjacent lot?
for lot 11 or for lot 24?
Well, for lot 24, all of our refuse and recycling is within the enclosure. And it will be brought out when, for the applicant's building, it's a private corridor. The enclosure that we have here is simply, we know how many cans are back there, what they're used for. I didn't open up the cans, don't really care. I just wanted to make sure that this area was large enough to accommodate all the cans, and it is, so.
Right, okay. And with regard to the draw, you talked earlier, and I'm trying to hit on some things you talked about tonight first, while it's still fresh, that you said that you showed that a higher groundwater table is at the property location than you expected.
Well, we had originally designed the seepage pits with standard depth, not believing that there was a groundwater issue. When they actually did testing in this back location, they found it shallower than we had anticipated, which is why we've added the pipe and shallowed up the dry wells. They now conform to design standards. We will provide the calculations to Mr. Harrington for his review. We haven't, that'll be part of a comprehensive resubmittal at a later date. But that's
Okay, yeah, then I'm not going to ask you, as long as it's available to the public, I'm not going to ask you any further questions about that then. I'll wait until I take a look at that. Thank you. With regard to, I think somebody said, I don't know if it was you, that it's the parking, that there's 13 spaces for residential and commercial use that was shared by lots 9 and 11. Did I write that wrong?
No, there's, and they're not, there's 9 spaces striped on lot 11.
On the east, to the east,
On the
right?
east.
Right.
There are some parking spaces, and we haven't surveyed lot 9. It's not part of our application. Neither is lot 10. They're not part of our application. I was simply referring to the number of spaces in this area in describing the level of activity past our garage door.
So how do, looking at A2, how does a vehicle get to, I guess it's 4 parking spaces behind lot 9 building?
I don't know. I've never seen them maneuver in or out.
Is there a way to get in or out other than through the British Home Emporium passageway?
Well, there's the existing driveway that goes out adjacent to the
To Lincoln Place.
to Lincoln Place, correct?
So as far as we know, that the approximately 4 parking spaces that are behind the building on lot 9 can either get onto the public right of way through via Main Street through the passageway under British Home Emporium, or go out to Lincoln Place through the easement area that we've been discussing as part of this application, correct?
Yes.
And then, and the same thing applies for the 9 spaces that are to the east, the diagonal spaces that are in the opposite direction than the arrow that is shown on the pavement coming in from Main Street, right?
As far as I know, yes.
And with regard to, you talked about the tandem parking on, I guess that's lot one, is that lot 22? Or is that lot 23, or is it both? And let's get, I guess I'm done for now, subject to the caveats I stated earlier with regard to A2, but that was helpful. Thank you, Eric. Can
You're
we go
welcome.
back to sheet 4 that you submitted most recently? The, I think it's March 26, 2021. Yes, thank you.
Yes, I have sheet 4 on my screen.
Right, and understanding that I'll reserve other questions once I see a revised plan. I just wanted to get just a general idea based on the testimony that you've provided so far. With regard to the tandem parking that, you said, currently exists, and I believe Mr. Stern commented on it. Does that extend to both lot 22 and lot 23?
Yes,
And you're not aware whether either property owner, received any type of approvals or otherwise for that tandem parking, correct?
I don't know.
And you don't know whether tandem parking was ever permitted or regulated one way or another, correct?
I don't.
And so now just getting back to some of your prior testimony. So I think you stated earlier, and you'll correct me, I'm sure, that the residential site improvement standards, or RSIS, is not the governing, I guess, regulation with regard to this application. Is that what you said?
Yes,
So the applicant believes that this application is not subject to RSIS requirements because what, this is a mixed use project?
that's correct.
And my understanding of the RSIS exception that deals with mixed use projects is where the commercial and residential are not discrete, correct?
That's correct.
And so you believe that the residential portion of this project is integrated with the commercial portion of this project, right?
Yes,
Now, for the commercial portion of this project, there's no parking requirement, right?
that's correct.
And there's separate access, ingress and egress to the commercial portion, separate and apart for the residential portion, correct?
Yes,
And there's no reason for the commercial use to be utilized or going back across the easement area that's partially on lot 23, correct?
I'm sorry, I don't understand your question.
Yeah, so in other words, the retail or the commercial use is not going to, because there's no parking underground for that use, they're not going to be utilizing the easement, the 30-foot easement area, correct?
Not to get to the parking area, no.
And are they using it for any purpose?
It's not defined in any way. I mean,
That's fair.
there's no posted restriction, I'll put it that way.
So lot 11 has dwelling units and lot 12 also has dwelling units, correct?
Yes,
And those are not mixed use buildings, right?
I don't know for sure. I know there's residential units in there. I don't know if there's anything else in there. I really haven't looked at it that carefully.
And And do you know, and I should have asked you this with regard to A2, whether lot 11 is used for deliveries for lot 9, lot 10, lot 22, or lot 23?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to register an objection, a couple of bases. First of all, it seems that no good deed goes unpunished. We are providing some improvements to our neighbors, but these are conditions on decades-long developed situations. We cannot deal with everything that exists and has existed on those properties. There's been traffic testimony that for circulation and other purposes, that the amount of traffic coming from the new project is insignificant and does not cause a traffic impact of any degree. And so if the applicability of RSIS to other lots that are existing is totally irrelevant to our application for construction of the new building.
Gary, what do you think?
This is, well, can I respond, please? First of all, you have, just on my couple questions, we have now established with Mr. Keller, who is not only the engineer, but also the traffic consultant for this application, where there's improvements taking place in lot 22, lot 23, lot 11, where we now know that lots 9, lot 10, lot 11, lot 22, lot 23, and of course, lot 24, all have the ability to utilize this new 30-foot two-way, I'm sorry, 20-foot, should be 30 feet, two-way ingress and egress to and from Lincoln Place. I am asking questions that go to internal circulation for all of these lots, including deliveries for all the lots and where they take place. I learned for the first time tonight that there's some sort of easement agreement that allows the lot 10 to park a van on lot 11, and that we don't know whether it's one way, two way. The arrow says one way, but the representation that is based on an Oprah request is that it's two way. So, this is a site, this is not just a D variance application with a lot of C variances and waivers, but it's also a site plan application. And one of the issues with regard to site plan application, as we all know, is adequate ingress and egress. And I certainly believe that all the questions I'm asking, given that all these properties, which have been mentioned prior to my cross-examination in one form or another, with now a new underground parking area, with a new, looks like 19 foot, I guess, wide garage, with an area for refuse in the back pursuant to an easement on lot 11, I respectfully contend that these are all relevant and appropriate questions.
Well, I think they're relevant, but I at least speaking for myself as a board member, already know all this because just in looking at the materials in past or prior testimony, lot 10, 11, and 12 are all under common ownership. There's also this easement agreement that allows people to circulate back there. And we know that, over passage of time, people who use those lots have worked out a way to do it. So yeah, it's important to hear this, but I don't consider it new. I think what you just said, I already recognized that. Maybe the rest of the board didn't, but I understand it's a lot going on back there, and that's what the applicant's trying to do is create some positive criteria here by trying to organize it a little bit. So that's my interpretation of it. So I think it's okay that you've gone through this. That's my read of it.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting, Mr. Chairman, that there's any, huge surprise here, but I think I'm trying to, especially given the fact that, and I'm not aware that there's common ownership amongst lots 9, 10, and 11. That's
Well,
good
it's
to,
all, it's in the documents and you could see it on the plan. You see it on the survey, you can see who owns these properties.
well, I'll tell you that this is the first, and I apologize, I may have missed it, but I have not seen a site plan until tonight with A2 that shows anything other than half of lot 11.
Well, this is the survey here that we all got. And you can see it's Madison Main Property Zones 10, 11, and 12.
All right, well, I'll take a look at that survey.
Okay, no, I appreciate what you're getting at. You're trying to get at the facts.
So, Mr. Keller, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me just move on here. So talking about the common ownership, lots 11 and 12 are in common ownership. That I do know. Is that correct?
I haven't looked at the ownership lately. Whatever's on our site plans. Well, lot 12 is not part of the application, so I'm not aware of that because we haven't dealt with lot 12.
Do you know where tenants and visitors and deliveries for lot 12, where they park?
I don't.
Mr. Chairman, that question's been asked and answered multiple times. You can't expect our engineer to know who's parking cars on those lots.
Yeah, we have to try and keep moving this along.
Yeah, no, look, if, Mr. Chairman, you just stated earlier about, the common ownership, and if lots 11 and 12 are in common ownership and there's no other parking for lot 12, at least that I see, I'm just asking the traffic engineer whether he knows. If he doesn't know, I'll move on. No problem. So, Eric, so other, just to cut to the chase, you've done then no evaluation on who's using the parking spaces on lots 9, 10, 11, or for lots 9, 10, 11, or 12, correct?
Correct.
And with regard to, and again, if I missed this, I apologize. With regard to the parking that's currently being proposed, and I know is going to be revised, it sounds like at least somewhat, with regard to lots 22 and 23, that there's proposed to be a mechanical gate, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And I don't understand is, what is the purpose of the mechanical gate?
Romanelli doesn't want people other than his tenants parking in that lot.
So when you say the tenants, it's the consignment shop and the beauty salon?
I don't know who parks there. He emphasized it yesterday. He doesn't want, people that are not going to one of his properties parking there. Who parks there? Again, I don't know.
So if I am a patron of the consignment shop or the beauty salon, am I going to be able to access what is currently, and I know it's going to be revised, but what's currently the 12 parking spaces that are shown on sheet 4 of 10?
It would be limited to employees or anybody who is given a clicker to access the parking lot.
And you don't know what the current number of employees are for either one of those lots, correct?
Mr. Chairman, the configuration has existed for decades. These questions are irrelevant to the application before.
Mr. Wolfson, this is the first time in the history of Madison that this type of proposal with a mechanical gate that you need a clicker to open to access a property that is outdoors, that is only for from what I'm hearing, the employees of the two lots, but not for any patrons, and certainly wouldn't be for anyone making a delivery to those lots. That's why I'm asking the question. It's completely relevant.
Well, I don't think he said that he knows that it's only employees. I think he said he didn't know, and it would be whoever was given a clicker. So again, my objection is it's irrelevant to the application before the board. As to who parks in there, that's Mr. Romanelli's business. It's his property. We are only trying to help improve situations on lots to which we are somewhat tied by virtue of common access ways that have existed for decades.
And so currently, do you know, Mr. Keller, there's no mechanical gate up, correct?
Correct.
And okay, and you don't know who's going to be getting a clicker, obviously, right?
No.
Okay. And you've done, other than not knowing about who's parking where between 9, 10, 11, 12, you haven't done any counts of vehicles that access the soon-to-be 20-foot easement area from Main Street currently, correct?
No.
Okay. And you haven't done any projections as to how those numbers are going to be affected by the subject application, correct?
Well, I mean, we did our trip generation calculation for this building. And the peak hour traffic is generally residents of that building, but not entirely. So, and as Mr. Maltz, the borough's traffic consultant, indicated, our trip generation calculations are conservative because we didn't take credit for the fact that we're across the street from the Madison train station.
But you haven't taken a look at any trip generation along the easement area in conjunction with the use of lots 22, 23, 9, 10, 11, or 12, correct?
We did not count the activity on that existing driveway, no.
All right. With regard to,
Didn't we get testimony, just correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Keller, didn't we get testimony that the occupants of the new building 24, the proposed structure, are going to enter and exit from Lincoln, right? Because it'll be a right turn only exiting the garage, I think it was the testimony. And that I think you guys said something about a sign that the owner of lot 11 wanted a sign at the bottom of the driveway there, entering onto lot 11, to the effect that it's only for residents there, which I presume then would mean that the cars for 22 and 23 would also enter and exit from Lincoln. That was the impression I got from testimony. Is that correct?
You are correct, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for reminding me of that fact. That was one of the requirements we are proposing, and will place a sign so that nobody goes through lot 11 unless they're destined for those properties owned by Madison, Maine. Our traffic goes out to Lincoln Place, and that sign will reinforce the fact that anybody on lots 22 and 23 will also go out to Lincoln Place.
Right. Okay. Yeah, because it was my impression that there was going to be less traffic going out to that tunnel because of these controls that were being instituted.
Correct.
Okay. So lots 22 and 23 it's going to be left-hand turn only coming out of that parking area?
Yes.
And coming out of the parking garage, it's going to be right-hand turn only with the sign?
Yes.
And is there going to be any type of, other than the signage, is there going to be anything that actually impedes someone from, if they wanted to get onto Main Street that way as a cut through, do it?
It's just signage.
Okay, and is it going to be Title 39 enforced?
We have not discussed that with the borough.
And let me then move on to, so on your site plan, Eric, when you put together, and I apologize, hold on a second. I think I don't know if it's 2 of 10 now, Eric. I have 2 of 9 in your zoning schedule.
It will be 2 of 10, but the plans that are currently before the board, sheet 2, it's sheet 2 of 9.
So you provide bulk requirements for lots 11, 22, 23, and 24, correct?
Yes.
And with regard to lots 11, 22, and 23, you have as existing use NA or not applicable, right? Why is do you know if the uses of lots 11, 22, or 23 are conforming or non-conforming?
I know.
And with regard to your zoning table, you have a bunch of what I'm going to call as delineated as E next to certain numbers for lots 11, 22, 23, and 24, representing existing nonconformity. Did you do any type of research to determine whether those numbers that you identify as existing nonconformity are legally valid as predating an ordinance that made them violated?
No.
Chairman, my objection is it's an irrelevant line of questioning as to the existing conditions, decades-long configurations.
If these properties, which are clearly in play based on testimony, based on zoning tables that the applicant itself went to great length to identify, if he's saying that for certain measurements that they represent existing nonconformities, I want to know whether these are legally permitted as predating the ordinance that made them in violation, or whether they just are currently violated today and they've been around for a while. Because there's a difference legally in terms of whether variance relief is required.
Mr. Simon, is your client interested in having violations issued against the owners of those lots for conditions that have long existed?
Mr. Wolfson, that is a completely irrelevant question before a planning board, and you know it. This is not an enforcement agency. I'm asking the question because your client filed an application that includes a lot more lots than just lot 24, including an easement area, and you've identified that you don't need variance relief because it's because of certain conditions that are quote unquote pre-existing nonconformities. And I'm asking your witness who prepared the zoning table, this led me to this question, whether he has actually done the research to determine whether they are legal, pre-existing, non-conforming. All he has to say is, Rob, I didn't check, which is fine, and then I'll move on.
I think I did say that.
Okay, so you did not check. Okay, that's fine. And I apologize, Eric, because you may have stated this earlier, but have you identified how many cars, even with the tandem parking, currently park at capacity on lots 22 and 23?
No.
And you haven't done any type of calculation to determine what the ordinance requirement is today for what the parking requirement would be for lots 22 and 23, correct?
Correct.
And with regard to the variances and waivers on sheet 2 of 9 that you identify, based on the fact that you're proposing to demolish the existing building and build a brand new building, which one of those deviations that you're requesting relief for are due to the size of the building, the proposed building, meaning that if you reduce the proposed building, you would reduce the deviation or eliminate the deviation. For example, you're requesting a rear yard setback variance, correct?
Yes,
If you reduce the size of this brand new building, you could conform or comply with the rear yard setback requirement for the zone, correct?
that's not our application.
But I know it's not your application, but you could do it, right? There's nothing to physically prevent you from reducing the size of the building. So to eliminate, just as an example, the rear yard setback variance.
Yes,
And that may in fact be your answer if we went through as to some of the other deviations for which relief is requested, simply by reducing the size of the building, correct? I understand that you're asking for the relief. I'm just asking you that you could, by reducing the size of the building, eliminate some variance or exception relief, correct?
Possibly I'd have to look at it and, you know, I haven't because that's not our application.
Okay, that's fair. With regard to, and I think you may have, I think you talked about this earlier with regard to the distance between minimum distance for parking spaces from buildings. But I believe there's also a requirement in the ordinance that deals with landscape buffers when a non-residential or a mixed-use development is contiguous to a residential use, that there should be a landscape buffer that is at least 10 feet in depth. And my question is that with regard to lots, given that lots 11 and lot 12 are residential properties, is the applicant proposing that type of landscape buffer strip, or are they requesting relief by way of an exception or waiver or variance?
We're not proposing a landscape buffer of any width on lot 24. I
So,
defer to our planner as to the variances required.
okay, yeah, no, I'm just asking you, Eric, because I didn't see you note it on sheet 2 of 9. So you didn't look at that either way, correct?
If it's not on the plan, then apparently we did not address that.
And it looks and I'm looking now at sheet 4 of 10 and that van parking area. So that, and just for clarification, that area looks like it straddles the 17-foot right-of-way, but that 17-foot right-of-way is for the benefit of lots 22, 23, and 24. Is that accurate?
It does straddle the 17-foot right-of-way. Who that right-of-way is in favor of, I don't know. Sitting here tonight.
Mm-hmm. And other than the repaving and the striping of that 17-foot right-of-way area, and I guess putting in directional arrows, are you doing anything else by way of improvements to that area?
That area being,
I'm sorry, Eric, the 17-foot right-of-way area to the rear of the proposed lot 24 building.
no.
And with regard to the turning templates that you provided on your most recent submission of plans here. Oh, here they are. This is sheet 7 of 10, most recently revised March 26th. With regard to the proposed size of the garbage truck and the fire truck, is that per the municipality's direction in terms of the size of those vehicles?
Yes.
And I see you did a turning template for a Toyota Camry. Did you do a turning template for a larger vehicle like an SUV or a van?
No, we did not.
And my question, Eric, you said that you increased the size, I believe, of the width of the garage door. It was 18 feet, or the garage opening, I'm sorry, and it's now 19 feet. You added a foot?
The
Right.
architect did, yes. Yeah, it's
So,
19 feet
sorry.
at the face of the building, correct.
right. So, how did that not impact the size? If you're making that area wider by a foot, how did that not impact any of the parking space widths?
If you're looking at sheet 7,
I am.
that face of the building where we widened it out is not adjacent to any parking spaces. It's the area between the actual garage door and man door.
Oh, I see the man door. Okay, never mind. Yeah, I don't want to waste your time. That's fine. I think someone may have referred to this last time, but your testimony is that if somebody backs into one of those lowest level parking spaces, that their doors, none of the doors, whether it's the passenger door or the front door, are going to be impacted by any of those columns? Because it seems like they would be if you backed into those spaces.
No, the columns are by the hood of the car.
By the hood of the car.
Yeah, the doors would be behind, the front doors would be behind the columns.
But so if you went front into those parking spaces, you could conceivably line up where those columns would impede one of the back doors opening, correct?
No,
No?
no.
With regard to the fire truck and the garbage truck, your turning template, talking about the fire truck, and now I'm still on sheet 7 of 10. Is that fire truck entering the property by crossing over into the opposite lane?
As shown on this plan, yes.
And with regard to the garbage truck, is the garbage truck, what is it doing there? Is it backing into the driveway?
It appears,
I'm sorry, Eric, on sheet 7 of 10,
Yeah.
the turning template. So you have it looks like you have a garbage truck that is, I don't know what it's doing. Can you just describe that?
It's backing down the driveway.
So it's going from north to south along Lincoln Place. And then it's stopping, and then it's going backwards across Lincoln Place to back into the driveway.
Yeah, and that's based on our discussions with the borough, and that's what it does today, down a 15-foot wide driveway, whereas we're now gonna have a 20-foot driveway. What they do now.
The theater, and I saw, and now I'm going back to sheet 2 of 9. The theater has not been in operation for what, over 4 years now? Right?
Thing like that. I don't know for sure.
Right. I mean, no, the only reason I'm asking, Eric, is that you talk about, for existing water demand calculations and sanitary sewer demand calculations, you reference the theater. And I was just curious about that. as to why you're showing net water and sanitary sewer demand per day increases as compared to the theater use if the theater hasn't been in operation for some time. Is there any particular reason why you did?
It's standard practice. I mean, the use has been there, it's used water, it's used sewer, and we're doing a comparison of the demands of the current use, former use, and the proposed use.
And with regard to, and I know there was a question asked in fairness by a member of the public, or maybe more members of the public, but I didn't hear or read via the transcript an answer, or at least a clear answer to the question of where deliveries are going to take place for the retail and where deliveries are going to take place for residents, you know, such as Amazon trucks or vans, and for, you know, people moving in and out.
Well, I thought we addressed that. For move in, move out, they're scheduled. You know, we're talking about 24 units, and once the project is leased and occupied, the frequency of move in, move out is very infrequent.
Right. So stop right there. So you did state that, but you didn't answer, where is that actually going to take place? Where's the moving truck going to be situated?
Most likely they will find a place on the street.
And with regard to Amazon or UPS deliveries or FedEx, are they also going to find a place on the street?
I'm sure that's what they're doing today, and they would continue to do, you know, in the future.
That's what they're doing today for what property?
For other businesses.
So there's no intention of the 20-foot easement area being used for any type of deliveries or staging or anything like that, right?
No.
And again, for lots 22, 23, 9, 10, 11, you don't know where any of the deliveries and loading take place, right?
I don't.
And going back, I'm sorry, Eric, to the sheet that you provided, or the applicant provided, the cellar floor plan. And you show that one of the spaces is a handicap space, correct?
That's, yes, the architect's plan, yes.
Right. No, I'm sorry, Eric. Yeah, it is the architect's plan, my mistake. But I think you testified though that one handicap parking space would be required for this application, correct?
Based on the number of units, yes.
So what happens if there's 24 units and one space assigned per unit? If you have 24 units and of the 24 units that are occupied, you don't have anyone that requires or qualifies for a handicap accessible parking space. Does that mean that one of the units will end up without a parking space?
No, if you know, this is private parking, this is for the residents. If there is not one person who needs an accessible parking space, then they would not provide it, and it would be assigned to a unit. If somebody moved in at a subsequent date and needed that accessible space, they would make that adjustment as part of their management of the building.
So it's not, so if there's no need for it amongst the residents of the 24 units, you're saying that legally you can eliminate the handicap space?
I can't opine on it legally. I'm not an attorney.
Okay, but I'm saying you have vast experience in terms of traffic engineering, for sure. So in your experience and your understanding as to the need or requirement for a handicap space, is it permitted to eliminate the handicap space if no one in any of the 24 units in this case is handicapped?
I would say from an engineering perspective and from a functionality perspective that it's appropriate to eliminate the handicap spot if none of the residents require it.
Okay, okay, fair enough. As an engineer, that's your opinion.
Yeah.
Going back to sheet 4 of 10. Eric, with regard to the sidewalk that is currently proposed versus what is existing today, the width of the sidewalk is decreasing, correct?
There is no sidewalk along the shared driveway.
No, I'm sorry, I misspoke. Shared, the driveway, I'm sorry, the sidewalk along the front of the movie theater building versus the sidewalk in front of the proposed building on lot 24.
We are providing sidewalk from the curb to the front of the building, since in the front of the building has a 0-foot setback. The movie theater has a 0-foot setback, so the sidewalk has the same width as it does today. Actually, it'll be a little bit wider because we're introducing, well, the architect is introducing some jogs to the front of the building.
Yeah, I mean, because when I looked at the most recent renderings that were provided with the most recent submission, it looked to me like that the width of that sidewalk in front of the building is getting narrower. And I
No.
was just curious, it's not, okay.
No.
That's fine. And with regard to, I guess I'll wait till next time to ask you a question about lighting and landscaping, because that may change. Is that accurate?
Well, it will change to some degree for the parking area on lots 22 and 23. We're not changing anything associated with the proposed building.
Well, because it seems like that with regard, let me ask you a question, Eric. On lot 8, which is block 20, I'm sorry, block 2702, lot 8, is that a residential building?
2702. Oh.
No, it's not.
No. It's a commercial building.
Okay. And with regard to the residential building on lot 11, it seems like that you're going to have from that the light on the rear of your building, one of the D, I guess, D lights is going to result in basically at the building a 0.6 foot candle measurement, correct?
Yes.
Have you, and then it's actually going to be, right, so it may be just about 1 foot candle at that window. Are there any windows, residential windows that are going to be facing that light?
I don't recall. I don't believe so. Recall.
Yeah, gentlemen, because I'm afraid because we have residential applications tonight, we're going to need to wind up. So if you have
Okay.
last questions,
No,
Mr. Simon,
I
or-
can, yeah, Mr. Chairman, thank you for that, and I appreciate the time this evening. I'll finish up my questions next time when Eric provides the revised plan.
Okay, so with that, we're gonna wind it up tonight. So we've carried this to the 6th, right? And to the 6th. And then the attorneys will need to confer on exact game plan between the 6th and the 13th in terms of what we do exactly.
Right, and just be aware that I will be out of state at my niece's wedding and unavailable on the 6th. But thank you, but of course you can proceed accordingly.
Yeah, we have that noted.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Santoro. Appreciate
Mr.
that.
Wilson, did you want to add anything?
No, would just again like to thank the board and its professionals for their time and patience as we work through the application. We look forward to seeing you again on May 6th at 7:30 p.m.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate everybody's efforts.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Okay, so what the board is going to do right now is we're going to take a 5-minute break and then we're going to get going at 9:30 on the residential. So camera off, mute your,
Good night.
thank you, Russell.
Good night, Fran.
Hey, Gary,
Yes,
13 Lewanika has in its notice area the Madison Housing Authority.
yeah,
So if we're doing that one, I need to recuse myself on that one.
yeah. Which one is that? I always go by the name.
Yeah, that one's 13 Lewanika. It's number 21-005.
We're not, that's not on tonight anyway.
That's not on tonight. Okay.
No,
Uh,
13 Lewanika, we're doing that next.
Oh, is that? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right.
What's the conflict there?
Housing Authority is in their 200-foot zone.
Yeah, technically that's interesting, black and white.
So I need to recuse myself.
Sure,
on
sure.
that. Okay.
All right,
So,
so Diane will step down on this one.
Yep.
Got that?
Yep.
Fran? Okay, just waiting a second for everybody else to come back.
Are the Canforas here? Fran?
Give me
We can
one
let them-
minute.
Huh?
Give me 1 minute. I know Mr.
Okay.
Deladonna is the
We're in
architect.
Anderson. Oh, the architect, yeah.
I don't see Mr. Canfora.
Mr. Deladon, are your clients here?
Mr. Hall, good evening. Yeah, my clients are on. They're trying to be let in, I guess.
Oh, okay, all
You
right.
see them, Fran?
Oh, there's Michael. Okay, you got one of them at least.
Hello.
Oh, they're both together. Okay.
We're
Good
here.
then.
All right, we got everybody.
I saw Anthony a minute ago. Wasn't he on here?
Yeah, we need Jim too.
And Jim.
Yeah, for Fran or Mike, you gotta start my video.
Okay.
You can start it yourself. There you go.
Hey, Dennis,
Got
no, I don't think we're gonna need you on this, so if you wanna relax tonight.
I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. and Good night, all.
Thank you very much for
Night.
your efforts tonight. Appreciate it.
Night, Dennis.
Hey, before we get started, I just want to make an announcement. The fourth one we intended to hear, case number Z 21008 McDonald 107 Greenwood. I apologize, but we're running behind. We're not going to get to you tonight, so you'll be carried to the 29th. So with that, let's proceed with case number Z 21005 Canfora, block 3101, lot 9, 13 Lewanika Terrace. Applicant is seeking permission to partially modify rear roof and a new paver, patio area, gas fireplace, covered spa, stormwater management measures, and the removal of existing deck in an R3 single-family residential zone requiring relief from minimum rear yard setback and maximum principal building coverage. Welcome.
Okay, let me swear the Canforas in. If you both raise your right hand, do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes.
Okay, great. And before you start, I'll mark what's been filed, the main items. We have a zoning denial letter, September 16, 2020. That will be B1. We have, let's see, we have a survey, Mazzaro Engineering, last dated August 8, 2019. That will be A1. We have architectural plans from, I think, let's see. I think this was from David Deladon, architect, dated 8/26/20. That'll be A2.
824, Gary, sorry, 824.
Oh, hard to read. Okay. And we have a set of
What is-
six color photographs on 3 sheets. Collectively will be A3. And anything else can be marked as we go along.
Okay, great. So why don't you tell us about your application? And welcome.
Thank you, Joseph, and everybody on the board. We're excited to speak with you tonight. So my name is Michael. This is my wife, Jenna. We bought our house on the Wanaka Terrace. It was a new construction build at the end of the block in September 2019. Absolutely. We're new to the town. We absolutely love the town, love the neighborhood. We've made very close friends with our neighbors. When we bought the property, the backyard was the only thing that was pretty bare and plain. There's a small paver patio and a small I would call it a landing deck. So it's probably the one part of the house that we needed to maybe do something with. We have a 16-month-old daughter, so we're looking to extend the patio out a bit, and we're looking to add a shaded living area, a shaded covered patio as part of the as part of the patio. Our backyard faces west, so we get sun in the backyard from about call it 12:30 through the end of the day, which is why partially why we're looking to add the shaded patio. When we went to submit the project, we realized that we were looking at potentially rear setback as well as principal coverage. So that's when we brought in Mr. David Daldon to help us with making the adjustments and getting them as close to in accordance to what the town wants as possible. So we're happy to have David, and he's been a big part of helping us design this. So with that, I was going to pass it off to David, so maybe he can talk about some of the specifications.
Okay, that's a good overview. Sure, why don't we do that?
Sure. Mr. Hall, you want to swear me in?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth.
I do.
Okay, you're a licensed architect, state of New Jersey?
Yes, I am. I'm a graduate of Penn State University with a Bachelor of Architecture degree. Been licensed for over 25 years, and in the state of New Jersey, my license is currently active. And I have testified before this board numerous times on variances for residential, and I've testified before other jurisdictions as well.
Yeah, we'll accept you. Go ahead.
Thank you. So as Mr. Kentford defined, he and his wife approached me with the application or the desire to build a roof patio or a shaded kind of living area at the back of their house. We did look into both the structure as a attached structure and a detached structure, and we kind of weighed the options of the two, and we felt that the least obtrusive and the most desirable would be to have a piece of an extension of the house as a roof structure attached to the house. It would pretty much go over an area of the house that was at the rear property, would be able to cover their living space at the back, and give them the opportunity to spend time out there undercover, as well as by expanding their patio that they have. We were able to increase their living space on a patio. So in looking at that, we went through the desires, and we went through certain sizes, and we came up with an obvious, we only had about 2 feet on the rear setback. So we pretty much conceded we were going for a rear yard setback. So we are adding 16 feet as an addition to the rear, and we're adding that structure is 20 foot wide. So it totals 320 square feet. And then adjacent to it, we're adding a revised paver patio. It expands on a paver patio that's there right now, but in total, it would be, it's identified as 414 square feet. And we do take the credit for the pavers. That's certainly allowed by ordinance. So within the 16 feet, there would be steps similar to what's there right now as a landing. There would be steps going down from the living space off the kitchen into the covered area. The underneath part would be housing patio furniture and the like seating areas. And they also are looking to do a gas fireplace with a stone veneer, very decorative, very much in tune with the neighborhood, very much in tune with the design of the house. And that would be under the patio, the roof structure as well. The structure would be defined by 4 corner posts, and that would be the main structure. So essentially all 3 sides are open, except for the corner points where the support of the structure would be. So in doing that, we essentially determined that the rear yard setback was in violation, where the R3 zone, as you know, is a very interesting zone in town. It has a 40-foot rear yard setback, and we are currently at 42.7. By the 16-foot addition, we're going to 26.7. So that's an encroachment of approximately 13 feet. The other part that we are in variance for is the principal building structure. So similar to many things that happen with some of the newer homes in the area, because Lawanica Terrace was expanded very recently, the house was maximized in terms of its coverage. So there was only really about 0.04% to work with. And because we did attach this structure to the house, it added to principal structure. So it brought the principal structure numbers from 14.56 to 17.07. We feel it's not a drastic increase. We feel the size of it is in tune with the size of the house. And as you can see from some of the photographs that we submitted, what we're doing is the extension off the back does go into the backyard, but the scale of the house is in keeping with essentially the scale of the neighborhood still. One of the things that was also submitted, Mr. Hall, was a aerial photograph and an aerial kind of setback sketch. And those were on the submissions. I thought they were part of the documents on file.
I don't have copies, but I don't know, Fran, do other people have those?
They're within the documents on the website. If you want, I can bring up.
Yeah, why don't you bring it up? We can look at it. I mean, it's not critical, but I don't have
Okay.
it.
Essentially what
They
I
were
did
not
was-
submitted in the package. If you submitted them separately for what you sent to communications, they were not a part of the package you submitted to this office.
Okay, why don't you
Okay.
bring them up if you can, share screen. And
I can certainly try to do that. So the first one you're seeing is an aerial. And this aerial is actually before Lawanica Terrace was developed. So the first development is the house, would be the house just to the one side. Let's see if I can work this. So the house in question right now, the Canfor's house sits right about here. It's part of the cul-de-sac that was created. So what essentially happens is the front of the house is partially set back, similar or different from these other houses along the front yard. And as a result, their rear yard is essentially restricted. If I could bring up one other, I will share one more. And that would be this diagram. So what I tried to do is the property in question is number 13 on the right, and that is directly off the cul-de-sac. And what you can see is the house is set back almost 25 to 30 feet. The actual calculation that I did was a difference of 25.4 feet. So the front yard are setback and a lot different because they're on the cul-de-sac. So that actually gives them an odd shaped property. It gives them a hardship in terms of comparison to the neighborhood. And it does give them a restriction on the rear yard. So the area that we're adding is essentially the third part of the house, where the one part is the garage, one part is the living space, and then typically on the other houses, the third part is the front living space. But in this case, the Canforas would be creating that third living space in the back rear yard. So I'm going to stop sharing this unless anybody has any questions for it. So again, because they're on the cul-de-sac, it creates a condition where the lot forces their house to be set back on the same depth properties as the other properties, and therefore is restricting their rear yard. So we tried to portray that on those two exhibits or those two photograph samples, and we think, though, even though the house gets deeper, it's the open patio situation where it's a lot more light and it's not a full structure with walls. So I don't think it's as obtrusive as it would be if it was a true addition. Just some other things to touch on. Again, we're in an R3 zone. And we did, like I said, we did look at potentially detaching it, and we thought detaching it would be more restricted in the rear yard. It would be more of an eyesore as a detached structure. Because we're on the cul-de-sac, the lot shape is certainly, as you can see from the as-built that is submitted, the lot is certainly a shape that is a little restrictive in terms of the cul-de-sac pushing the front yard further into the property. Similarly, I went through some of my records, and back in 2015, I did an application on Valley Road in Madison, and the numbers were very similar. We did an open porch addition with a patio underneath and then adjacent to it. And that application was approved. That variance for rear yard was a 29.17 foot application or variance. And the coverage at that one was 17.33%. So that application again was in 2015. Very similar in style, very similar in terms of attaching to the house. So I think it would be beneficial to do this. It would not be certainly a detriment to your current zoning or the current neighborhood. I think a structure like this would certainly be very attractive to the house. And we tried to define it as best we could to match the architecture. And I believe the variance we seek could certainly be done. And we hope the board finds it favorable.
Questions from the board?
Yeah, this is Jim Foster. Could you just describe your sketch drawing shows, it looks like it shows a leader going on from the porch addition going into an existing storm inlet. Could you just describe what that is showing us? Sure, that's exactly what it's showing. The downspouts from this roof structure would be attached to what is a storm inlet at the rear property. There's the storm inlet as well as a current drywall on site based upon new construction. It's my understanding and my understanding the engineering of that storm inlet was done for surface runoff, both for the property itself and for the runoff from the property behind. I had conversation with Matarazzo Engineering, and there's a stone trench along the back of the property.
that accepts runoff from both this property and the adjacent property, which is somewhat uphill from this property. So there's runoff, and it was recognized during the approvals that the runoff would come from the adjacent property to the stone trench and then into that inlet. That inlet does ultimately lead toward the stormwater system that's in Loanica Terrace. And based upon my conversation with Matarazzo, he did not, he felt there was certainly capacity, and he felt that this area, because it would be occupying prior lawn space, would certainly be handled by that inlet.
Well, I don't have any questions. I really don't have a problem with this. So, anybody have any issues?
I don't know issues. I have a little curiosity. Because there is already a patio there. I'm wondering why if you have, why you need a roof patio and an open patio.
I think as the homeowners testified is if you look at the orientation of the house from about 11 or 12 o'clock in the morning, you have constant sun going from east to west. So you have constant sun on that back.
I understand that. I'm just thinking like I'm not taking any exception to having a roof patio.
Okay.
I'm just curious about having two patios.
Well, again, the function of many people currently in outdoor spaces, and given the times we're in, everybody's looking to get outside and still be safe. And one of the functions is to not only be undercover and have a living space undercover, but also still have a traditional patio area with lounge chairs, a grill area. Obviously, the grill would not function underneath the roof, so you'd still have an area where the grill would serve. So again, it's really the multitude of functions or that the backyards are really going toward.
I will say, I think this is a fine application. From my perspective, the real purpose of the building coverage ratio is really to prevent a structure from becoming so big that it either kind of destroys the streetscape negatively or makes the house so big that it starts to loom over the neighboring houses. This doesn't do that in either respect. I think that it's fine. Indirectly, the building coverage ratio issue can also touch on the impervious coverage limit. You're under the impervious coverage. The fact that you're capturing the roof runoff, taking it in storm inlet, I think is fine. To me, I think it looks like a fine plan.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, does any board members have any issues or reservations here? No?
None here.
Okay, so I think at this point, we should probably open up the public. Are there any members of the public that have any questions or make a statement either in support or opposition to the application? That would be the time.
There are no hands raised.
Okay, we'll close the public portion. Do you want to wind up your presentation with anything?
Sure. Mr. Santoro, I just want to raise one more issue, and I apologize for not bringing this up sooner. The denial letter had the terminology in it that talked about a covered spa. The application did not have any part of a covered spa in the original document we gave to Mr. Buckaloo. I think that might have just been some leftover language, or maybe it was meant to say covered roof. But I just want to clear up that even though we did notice for it because it was part of the letter, the application is not including any kind of covered spa.
We can cross that off just to avoid confusion.
That's fine. Yeah, we're told to notice for it, even though it's still in the letter, but
Yeah.
it's not, has not, and is not part of the application.
Okay.
Hey, anything else you want to add?
Again, just to reiterate, we're part of the R3, which is certainly a mixed bag zone in Madison, and we We think the application with the open air structure is certainly a benefit to the home, a benefit to the neighborhood. It will be architecturally matching in terms of its material, in terms of its quality. And we think it would be certainly a benefit not only for this yard, but for the neighborhood. And could be, the variance could be granted without detriment to the zone.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll wind up the presentation portion. Why don't we go to deliberation? Tim, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Look, I agree with Jim's comments that building coverage is really, for me, one of aesthetics. And I think as I look at this, I think it's actually, I think it helps the aesthetic from the back in terms of breaking it up to the eye and putting something that's a little bit, that just sort of breaks up the starkness of that wall and that height right there. You know, I'm always wary when developers kind of maximize square footage and leave out some things that are highly functional. I do think that this is highly functional, and you know, while it needs a variance, I think we can get, I can get comfortable with it, again, because I think from an aesthetic perspective, I think it is actually a benefit. So I'm supportive.
Jean?
Yeah, I mean, I was concerned about whether it would have a negative impact on the neighboring yards, the idea that this would be the only thing that's sticking out. But I did go stand in the yard, and you can see like the backyard neighbor's shed is basically to the fence anyway. And the fact that it's open, that it's on the pillars, really alleviated those concerns. I don't see a detrimental impact to the neighbors, and I'd be in favor of the application.
Helen?
I don't really have anything to add to that. I also think that it's a good looking design, and I'm in favor.
Anthony?
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. You know, it is a bit of an encroachment on that back setback line, but I think, you know, it is open air, it is a patio, you know, not really part of the building for aesthetic's sake. So I'm in favor.
And Jim?
As I said, I'm in favor of it.
Okay, I'm in favor of it as well. I see the principal building coverage is very minor, that one, and I think that you have a hardship based on the shape of the lot and just how the house has to be situated on it. So I think it's a nice application, so I'm in favor of it as well. So there's no conditions on this, so.
Did you miss Roger? I'm sorry.
Oh, Roger, I missed you. My apologies.
That's okay. I'll be in favor of it also then.
Just to be clear.
I'll go along with the argument. There is, you know, the lot is somewhat irregularly shaped. To me, the biggest hardship is the sun. It's there baking all day in the afternoon. So it really is hot that area. I can tell that area is really hot. And you know, to me, as long as it's never enclosed, if it was enclosed, I see it as a different application, but as long as it's open, it doesn't seem to rise to the height of the principal building coverage. So I think it's a great application.
Okay, do we need any condition on here about not enclosing it?
It's implicit, but it doesn't hurt to add it just so people are aware of it.
Okay, so we would just for the applicant, we would have a condition on it that you can't enclose it. Right, that's like an addition on the house, right? So
If you wanted to, you could come back to the board. We just can't do it without that.
Without
I
asking.
got you.
You
Understood.
can always ask for more down the road.
We like it open. But thank you.
Okay, so we need a motion to approve this with that condition.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
I think it was Tim. Who's second?
I did.
Jim did.
Yep.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Dianio,
Yes.
Mr. Fitzsimmons,
Yes.
Ms. Carr,
Yes.
Dr. Patel,
Yes.
Mr. Foster,
Yes.
Ms. Teratelli,
Yes.
Mr. Santoro.
Yes.
Very good.
Okay, congratulations, your application is approved.
Thank you very much.
You.
All right, good luck to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your help, Fran.
You're welcome.
Okay, so Fran, we're gonna have to admit the next applicant, which is E21007 Mandela, block 505, lot 3, 51 Canterbury Road. They're here.
Yes, Mrs. Mandela and Mr. Bayo.
Okay, great. All right, this is 51 Canterbury Road. Applicants are seeking permission to construct an extended foyer covered front porch and steps in an R3 single-family residential zone requiring relief from minimum front yard setback, maximum impervious lot coverage, maximum principal building coverage.
Okay, I'll swear in the applicants, the Mandelas, if you'd raise your right hands. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you are about to give will be the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. And Mr. Bayo, I have to see you to swear you in. Mr. Bayo, can you put your camera on? Oh, yeah. Oh, there you are. I have to see you swear you in.
Yep, sorry.
That's all right. You raise your right hand. Do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, I'll mark what's filed, and then we can start. First, we have a July 22, 2020 denial letter. That'll be B1. And we might as well mark, we have a copy of a prior resolution from 2000 granting approval variances for the Mandelas. That'll be B2. We have an existing survey. That'll be A1 ABC surveys, Andrew Clark, 7/1/2020, A1. And we have a copy of that survey showing a proposed front addition, the change, same date. That'll be marked A2. And we have a set of 2 pages of 6 color photos, collectively A3. And we have architectural plans from Mr. Bayo, 2 sheets, that'll be collectively A4. So that's what's been filed for now.
Okay, so welcome, and why don't you tell us about your application?
Sure. Thanks, Mr. Santoro. I'm George Mandela. This is my wife, Holly. We've been residents in Madison for 26 years now. We've raised 2 kids here, so we love the town, obviously, and been here for our adult life. 20 years ago, as you alluded to, we added an addition to the house where we put the family room with a master bedroom, and we added 2 dormers to the front. Our house is an old Cape Cod style with a very straight roof line that goes across. Back then, we failed to kind of add a portico, which is kind of what we talked about, but never really went through with it with everything else that was going on. And the problem that we have every winter is that the way the roof line runs, we get water that drips down and basically collects on the stairs that are uncovered. So the front entryway of the house is just the stairs into the house. And every winter with all the bad weather, it just freezes very easily. And we always have icy steps most of the winter whenever there's rain or snow, obviously, and the snow that collects on the roof drips. So it's a hazard, and it's very dangerous. So we're always having to scrape it, salt it, whatever. So we finally decided that, now's the time to cover it with a portico, so we could have more of a safe entryway and keep the weather off of the stairs and the icing. And as part of the planning, talking with the architect and the builder, we decided, because of the way the door is set up in line with the dormers, that it's not really in line if we do the portico, and it kind of changes the roof line, and it's not very aesthetic either. So what we were looking to do was to create a new entryway where we can center the door, have the covered stairways with the portico, but now have a more centered entry, a little bit more of a formal entry coming in now, and really have the protection from the weather. Not only creating safe stairs, but also much more aesthetically pleasing to the front view of the house. So, with that, we have our architect, Tom Bayo, on. I could turn over to him for the technical aspects of it if there's no questions for me.
Just a quick question back, when you were here in 2000 or so, and the application was to go up to 25% impervious, but you're somehow at 35.1. How'd that happen?
I think probably it was the result of, we added a couple of areas in the back. We put a gazebo up, and we put stones underneath it to protect, to create a flooring for it. And we also did the same for a shed that we put up. So I think it was the result of just adding those two structures, or the stone patios, that we could put the gazebo area and then a shed up.
Okay. Okay, let's hear from your architect.
Okay, good evening, and thank you for hearing our application tonight. So Mr. Mandela effectively described what we're doing, but I'll put some numbers on it. We're pushing out the foyer of the house 3 feet. This is in response to a lifelong problem they've had where the stairs are very close to the front door. The opportunity in introducing a covered stoop, and also pushing out, because of the need of a variance for anything we do here, pushing out the front foyer was critical to Mrs. Mandela. So we're pushing out the foyer 3 feet and the stoop 4 feet. The steps encroach an additional 3 feet, but essentially without consequence. This results in a front yard setback requirement of 35 feet, whereas we're only going to have 26.4. The current house is 30.5. So there's the most significant aspect of the application is that we're within the front yard setback. The next is the building coverage. The principal building coverage is going to go from 18.1 to 18.5, basically 28 square feet. In the scheme of everything, 28 square feet is not significant. It does add quite a bit of value to their usability of the home. And finally, the impervious coverage is going to rise from a requirement of 30%. The current is 35.1. I think you just alluded to that, how they got to 35.1. Well, with this encroachment, we're adding 10 square feet. So that's going to 35.2. To put things in context and sort of weigh them, the latter two variances of adding 28 square feet to building coverage and 10 square feet to impervious pale, probably, although they're significant in the sense that they both are further encroachments on nonconformities. The front yard setback is the most important. No home on this street can really add on a portico. A lot of them sit within the required front yard setback. I would say from that standpoint, this end of Canterbury Road, probably all of them are non-conforming. So we'd ask the board to deliberate with that in mind. I have no further argument.
Well, Gary, or the previous board, approve the 18.1 on the principal building?
We definitely didn't approve the lot coverage because the resolution said 25. Now they could go to 30, but the existing 35 is not non-conforming. It's not approved. It was never approved. So I think you got to focus on the delta from 30 to 35.2, not the 18 square feet now.
No. Well, I'm thinking about the principal building was.
Yeah, that's a separate matter. I'm just looking.
And the building coverage wasn't addressed in the 2000 resolution.
That's what I'm saying is.
I'm looking now, let's say.
Let me ask the applicants, did you add to the house at all after the year 2000?
No. We got the.
I'm not sure when
back
that
in 2000.
requirement kicked in. I mean, I don't know, but.
Yeah. And we came before the board in 2000 for the variance back then and was approved. So, but we have not done anything since then.
Yeah, there's no reference to what it was or wasn't, so.
Yeah, I don't know if that got overlooked or something.
It may not have been there, or maybe it wasn't counted right, or. But the lot coverage, the resolution does say it's was going to be 25.4 and not 35, whatever, 0.1.
Well, I'll cut to the chase. I don't have a problem with the portico. It's the issue of the excess coverage.
Yeah, on that, I had a question. The shed and the you got two patios in the backyard and a shed, and you got a big patio by the house. What's the story with the ones further back? What's the functional use of those areas?
Well, it's just, the shed is just, storage for gardening equipment, lawnmower, that type stuff that we needed. And then we just built, or put up a, like a gazebo type of covering with outdoor furniture, just to make better use of the backyard and the space,
The survey doesn't mention a gazebo. It shows a brick paver patio. Does that have a roof over it? Where's the gazebo?
Yeah, it's just a gazebo. It's a structure we bought at Lowe's. It's just like a roof.
Okay.
It's an open thing, but just with a cover, roof.
When did that go in?
Maybe it's a temporary structure. But when Andrew Clark did the survey, these are accurate per his date of the survey, which was July of last year.
Yeah, no, I mean, whether it's a roof or not, it doesn't matter in Hart and Madison because the coverage is only the principal building, but
Right.
either way, it's coverage, lot coverage, impervious. So that's the question. How about that little slate patio? What is that?
Oh, the little slate. You know what, we used that for, we had a fire pit, but we're not currently using it right now.
Okay.
Yeah, that was just extra things we had, and it was a dirt spot, so we just decided to make it look nicer and put that up, but it's not anything we use, and definitely, could be taken down.
Well, how's the board feel?
So I'm inclined to think that I have the same issues you have. I mean, I have no problem at all with the portico. I think it makes a lot of sense. It's cute and it makes sense for a front yard, but I do have a little bit of an issue with the coverage being quite so high. I mean, I think it would be reasonable to ask for some of the stuff that you don't use in the back. Maybe, is there something you could take up?
Yeah, the little slate area, I think, which is what we just referenced, that's something that's just laid slate down. So that definitely could be taken up.
I think that's 8 by 8.
Well, that's 64 square feet. We were seeking impervious increase of 10. So that would be a benefit should the application be approved.
No, the baseline is 35%, not 35.1. That was never approved.
Understood, but in the context of our application going to 35.2, we were.
No, you're asking for approval. What's there now that was never approved? So what's there now is irrelevant to I think, the 18.
Okay, that's fair, Gary. I'm sorry. I'm only speaking in the terms of how the letter was.
I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying legally, that's not the analysis the board is
that's fair.
To look at.
Okay.
Can you reduce anything further than that?
How about that brick paver patio in back where the little stairs come in on the right side?
No, because you know what, we, that's all part of a retaining wall that we put in to help with the water. We put in French drains. That's all to help. So there's not a problem with water. And I also am, I'm a member of the Garden Club of Madison, so I'm very particular about how the water drains. So I just bought one of those, what is it called? That water.
Rain barrel.
What? A rain barrel.
A cistern.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand what you're referring to, though, on the side of the house.
Yeah, I mean, does it have to, in other words, does the patio have to be as large as it is on the right side of the house if you're looking at the front, just in the back there? You know, on the side where the little steps are. In other words, I'm not saying take out the retaining wall.
Well, the steps going up towards the backyard from the patio. I guess I'm confused. I mean, we have the patio is kind of a permanent structure, so I don't really see what it would be to take that up. I mean,
Well, I guess I was thinking of it because I was looking at the covered patio in the back, and somehow I thought you probably get quite a bit of use from that, and you might want to change something else. You know, I have to say, when I went back there, I mean, it's a lovely yard, and I was a little surprised by how much stuff was in it.
Well, I mean, the back where the shed is, obviously something that we use for storage and keep stuff in. Where the gazebo is just, again, it's just additional outdoor space. We have the main patio that's on the house is kind of where we have our grill and we eat out there. And then the gazebo is more, where couches are, we're relaxing. So, I mean, it's not that big of a structure, and it just makes better use of our kids are grown. That's where we had the swing sets and everything. So, it's an adult backyard, and now we don't have kids anymore, or little kids around. So it just makes better use of the space for hanging out and entertaining, especially, during COVID, where you're trying to get outside as much as possible.
Well, it's possible to do those things on the lower patio as well, I suppose.
Yeah, but not covered with, I mean, not have the effect of the gazebo, because it's, that wouldn't make sense having it right on top of that house.
You couldn't cover part of that. You couldn't cover part of the existing patio.
I mean, I just don't really see how practical that would be, or,
Well, I mean, here's the situation. What you're asking for is not permitted under the law. It's not permitted, okay? And so the board is trying to find what we call positive criteria, which is, there's a negative here, right? You're over by 461 square feet at least, proposing 471, and what we're asking is some sort of a give back.
So taking up the patio.
But we're not going to tell you. We're not going to tell you what to do, okay? Because that's the decision you have to make. But the board is saying, I think the board is saying, and I'm not hearing anybody disagree with what I'm putting out there, is make a proposal. Just tell us what you can do. We're not saying you have to get down to 30%, which is the limit legally, right? But we're looking for you to improve the situation, at least in some material way. And that's the standard we hold all people to. This is not unique to you. This applies to everybody, right? And so I'd like you to make a decision on that so we can proceed.
Well, we've agreed to take up the one slate patio, and you're saying you need more than that?
Well, that's 60 feet, right?
That's 64.
Well, how's the board feel?
It is troubling because the developments over the years have just crept well over the limit without approval. I think that we need to see some material cutback in terms of the 35.2 that they're proposing to make it acceptable.
Where does the roof runoff go? Are the roof leaders, do they go to the ground? Do they go into a pipe? What's the story with that off your house when it rains? Where does the water go?
Yeah, they go into pipes into leaders that go out to the curb. That's what was here.
The front and the back?
I thought the back was in the back. I don't know.
I was trying to see from the pictures. I couldn't tell.
Yeah, that's for both front and back.
Okay. Does it slope down toward the street a little bit, your property?
Yes, it does, a little bit in the front, yeah.
How about the back?
No, it used to. We used to have a severe slope before we did our addition. We had a few issues because of that, but when we did the addition, by putting in the retaining wall, we took out the slope. So now we have a level backyard. So the patio goes up to basically to the retaining wall, and then the back is level beyond that. So with that, we put, a French drain in across the top of that wall to help with that water. So since we did all that in the last 20 years, we have not had any issues that we had prior to putting in the addition. So we were able to correct the water issue because we did have a severe downslope when we moved in.
Well, do you want to do more than the slight patio, or, I mean, we can go to a vote.
I'm just trying to think without, I mean, I'd have to severely rip up things to take more of the patio up. So I'm not, I guess that would be my only option.
Hey, George, we probably can maybe take a foot of it from the brick paver patio, which is one layer. Is that connected to the retaining wall as it comes up the side?
Well, I mean, the patio that's next to the house, if that's what you're referring to, that goes up to the wall.
Yes, that's what I was referring to. I was just hoping we could maybe get 20 square feet out of that as an accommodation.
Well, what we could do, I mean, I do have a suggestion thinking about it. We do have a garden on the side of the house that the patio goes up against. We could actually expand that garden and remove some of the patio, and that would make sense aesthetically, where we'd expand the side garden.
So this would be the right side between the vinyl fence and the house.
Correct.
I can see a scenario where we could take out another 20 square feet of coverage.
Yes. And then my wife would be happy because she'd have more garden space.
Yes, I will.
Which she's always complaining about.
Does the board see anything favorable in that approach, perhaps?
How much more are you looking at?
Well, we have 64 with the 8x8 slate, and we would agree to another 20 square feet of the brick paver patio shown adjacent to the side steps between the vinyl fence and the house.
I think, Helen, is that what you were talking about?
Mm-hmm.
It's right above the 10.9 side
Right.
setback
Yes.
number, right?
That's right.
Okay.
So in that corner of the house, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
So that doesn't look big enough to sit in or use, or really, it's just there.
Well, what's the size of the brick paver patio all the way in the back? How big is that? That second patio?
That's the covered one.
That's 10 by 10, I believe.
Yeah. Might be bigger.
Looks rectangular slightly, but not
Yeah,
much.
it might be 10 by 12. From my-
Yeah, I guess maybe. But if we could save that and take off, because since that's covered, it'd be better for us to create more garden space for my wife and take off the side patio.
Well, at least
Mainly just a walkway anyway, and more of the other space is towards the back. So I think that would be a good.
So would you be willing to say remove 100 square feet?
From the side, yeah, that would be.
From wherever, collectively.
Yeah, 100 square feet, we could probably do that, yeah.
The board
So we
agree?
were at 64, so that would be another 36.
Well, you could find it anywhere you want. Less concerned about that.
Holly and George, what do you think of that?
Yeah, that would get it down to about 34%, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, 90 would be 1%. 90.25.
We'd be willing to do that, yeah. I mean, we could definitely take off from the side, take off that one in the back.
Is the board okay with that?
I am.
Yeah, I think that's realistically, I think that's about as much as we can ask, but I think that's not an unfair ask on our part.
I agree with Jim on that one.
Me too.
Everybody's good with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, who's got a calculator to figure out the percentage?
Well, it's 100 square feet, and we would accept that as a condition of the approval.
Right,
that
but
would
the
bring-
variance is by percentage, that's all. I mean, we can figure it out. I can figure it out later. I'm just saying. It's more than 1% at least.
Yeah,
Right.
we were at 3179, it would be 3079 at that point.
Okay, are there any questions or points the board wants to make?
Not for me. I agree with you, Joe. I think the portico is not really a problem.
Right. So I want to go to the public. Is there any members of the public have any questions or want to make a statement either in support or opposition? Now would be the time.
No hands raised.
Okay, so if there's any concluding statements you'd like to make, that now would be the time for the
I
applicant.
have none.
None?
Yeah, we're good as well.
Okay, so then we're gonna go to deliberation with 100 square foot reduction in impervious as a condition. So Helen, what do you think?
I think, yeah, I'm for it. I, like the others, I think the portico in front makes sense, and I appreciate the a willingness to reduce the impervious.
Roger?
Yeah, I agree. I think the portico is really a significant upgrade to the house. So if we can get any improvement coverage wise, I'm completely in favor.
Anthony?
Yep, I'm right in line with those two statements.
Tim?
I'm supportive.
Diane?
I'm supportive also.
Jim?
Agree, I'm supportive.
Christine?
Also in favor.
Okay, great. I'm in favor of this application as well. So recognizing the benefits of that portico and then also the reduction in the overage. So can we get a motion to approve this with that condition, 100 square foot reduction?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Roger, second. So roll call, please.
Mr. Dianio,
Yes.
Ms. Driscoll,
Yes.
Mr. Fitzsimmons,
Yes.
Ms. Carr,
Yes.
Dr. Patel,
Yes.
Mr. Foster,
Yes.
Mr. Santoro.
Yes. Okay, congratulations. Your application is approved.
Thank you, board.
Very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, so that's 51 Canterbury. All right, let me survey the board here because we're at exactly 10:29. Do you guys want to go with this next one or close up shop early? 10:30.
Which one is next, Joe?
Laurel Way. Trying to be sensitive to the board.
Thank you, because we're
Yeah.
getting old and tired.
So it's up to you guys. If you feel we don't, under our bylaws, we don't have to take new testimony or start a new one after 10:30. So if you want to go with it, we'll go with it. If you feel like you don't, then that's fine. We'll carry it.
I go along with others. I'm looking at this one, dare I say, of course, it can be very surprising, but it doesn't look like it would be too time consuming.
Right. It doesn't look too bad. I would go along with doing it because we just
Yeah.
have such a
Okay.
big backlog.
Good.
Okay, so
Let's try to cram it through.
Okay, let's go.
But we're turning them off at 11. How's that sound? If we can't,
Yes.
we look like we're pretty well done. All right.
That sounds good. If I don't spot it, yell out. All right, so
I will.
this is case number Z20-025. Ed and Christine Walls, block 3302, lot 74, Laurel Way. Applicants are seeking permission to construct a deck and interior renovations in R1 single family residential zone requiring relief from maximum impervious lot coverage. Are they in? They're in. Okay,
Hi.
right.
I'll swear in the applicant and Mr. Bruno, and if you both could raise your right hands, do you both solemnly swear to tell the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do.
Great, okay, and well, first, Mr. Bruno, you're a licensed architect, you've been here before, et cetera.
I've been here many times before. I can't count anymore how many times I've been here.
That's fine.
And I'm licensed in the state of New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Florida, and now Connecticut, Mr. Hall.
So now we'll accept Mr. Bruno. He's
Okay,
been
that's
here
good.
many
Let me mark things real quick and then we'll move forward. We have a denial letter, December 2, 2020. That'll be B1. We have a survey, well, no, site plan prepared by Mr. Bruno's office dated. Jerry, what's the date on this? I can't read it. Oh, October 9, 2020. That'll be B1. And
No, that would be A1.
oh, I'm sorry. We already did B1. You're right. A1. Oh, we have, let's see, I'm going to disconnect it. We have an, oh, that's actually, we have a big one. And that's attached to sheets A1 and A2, so they'll both be part of exhibit B1, A1. I had 2 copies. And we have a survey, which I've detached from that by Andrew Clark, 10/06/2020, that'll be A2. I think that's good.
Okay, so Mr. Wallace, why don't you tell us about your application? Welcome.
Hi. First of all, thanks, board. It is late and really appreciate your sticking it out and hearing from us tonight. I'm Ed Walls. My wife, Chris, and I submitted this request, and it pertains to the impervious coverage limit. Chris grew up here in Madison. She actually grew up in the house next door. And so we were lucky to buy right here. I've been coming to Madison since we got together about 15 years ago. We moved here in 2016. We have 2 kids that go to St. Vincent's here in town. We plan to stay here in this house until we can't anymore. When we moved in, we thought about making some modifications to the house, and like everybody else, when we started spending every minute here because of the pandemic, we moved the timetable up a little bit. We asked Jerry to help us because, he's done work with a couple of our neighbors and we loved his work and they spoke really highly of him. As you know, we're looking to install a desk, and there's obviously plenty of room for it, but there's impervious coverage issue, and Jerry can tell you more about the particulars there. But I'm happy to answer any questions about us or the house.
Okay, why don't we go right to Mr. Bruno? Why don't you show us your plans, etc.
I'm going to share my screen.
Yes.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
The site survey?
Yep.
Okay. So thank you again for allowing us to present tonight and doing it so late. We're here asking for relief for impervious lot coverage for a proposed deck on the rear of the house. It's located on the rear right corner. Currently, the property is already non-conforming to the amount of impervious coverage by a small amount of 3.36%. By adding the deck, it doesn't increase our impervious coverage. The impervious coverage remains as is with the no net increase. A few years ago, I was here for similar application right around the corner in the neighborhood for Laurel Way and Treadwell Avenue. Part of the problem is this area, as mentioned at my last hearing, the permitted lot size is 25,000 square feet, but the property is well under that at 16,159 square feet in the zone. I'm just going to just scroll down to the floor plans, and as you can see, our deck in the back right corner, and due to the house being a split level, this deck allows us better access to the rear of the house from the kitchen split level of this house. We're also going to do other improvements. One is renovating the kitchen. 2, we're adding you'll see soon, a double slider door to the deck. And 3, we're renovating the sunroom. We're reconfiguring windows in the sunroom. And as you can see on the back of our house, our deck area and on the sides, the deck is anchored by a couple of tapered stone piers to give it some architecture with some lanterns on top. You can see our access point from the double sliding doors, and then our improvements of our sunroom with our windows, and we're gonna do a nice recessed panel system. The deck conforms to all our setbacks and to all our heights. And again, we're asking relief for the impervious coverage due to just the site being already currently over by that small amount. And I'm going to stop my screen, and that's pretty much concludes our presentation.
Hey, Gary?
Yeah,
Now, remember in that, these group of homes where it's R1, but the lots are really not
Right,
zoned right?
we get one there once in a while, and I think a year or two ago, the board did, in the annual report, specifically raise the question of maybe maybe they should take a look at the zoning designation of this little neighborhood, which is, because as I recall, all or nearly every lot was under the 25,000 square foot minimum. So probably by size, it could have been an R2 zone instead of R1. I mean, as Mr. Bruno pointed out, the requirement is 25,000 square feet, and what's exists is 16,159. So it's not even close. And without doing the math, it's clear that if they had anything approaching the 25,000 square foot minimum, they'd be conforming as to lot coverage. And on that real quickly, even though the deck does not alter or increase the lot coverage, because you're already over, the legal issue is, well, you're not making it worse, but can you make it better? Since you're doing some improvements, could you bring the lot coverage down? And this is not bringing it up, it's maintaining it. So that's the long and short of this.
If this was in the R2, I didn't do any of the math on this, I should have, but if this was R2, you applied the R2 standards to this, what would that variance be? Do you have to figure that out?
Well,
Jerry, do you know that?
I have the
I
book
don't
here.
know off the top of my head.
Just as a reference point, just to see what it is.
Well, here's the table. R2, lot size 15,000, so this will conform. And the lot coverage would be
Building coverage is 12.5 and impervious is 25.
25, so 25% they would
Right.
presumably, well, they're 23, 36 on this lot, so they would
Right.
conform to everything.
It would conform?
Yeah, because they have 23% coverage. And if they're in the R2, they'd be under the 25% that applies in the R2.
I feel like these few homes over there, they and I did, when I was participating in the master plan process, I did bring this up and suggested that they rezone these
Yeah, the
houses.
board has had a few over there, and they all seem to be in the same category. So,
And I just
Mr.
feel-
Hall, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Please, go ahead.
Mr. Hall, we actually, I remember a couple years ago around the corner on Treadwell and Laurel, we went through the same conversation on that one. And I remember Ms. Carr saying nice words about that project. And it was for a deck as well. And that had exterior improvements, facade treatment on that one, but it was similar situation to this one.
right, and having said that, the other thing I didn't say is that the improvements to the house are as of right. If you weren't doing the deck, you probably wouldn't need anything, but I don't know. It's highly technical that you need to be before the board on this.
Yeah, and I don't want to impose something that I feel isn't correct. So I was thinking that it wouldn't be right to ask them to reduce that coverage because I don't think it's zoned correctly there, to be honest with you.
No, and this is unlike the last one. This is clearly, it's a heavily undersized lot versus the R1 criteria. They're way under 16 versus 25,000 in lot size. So
And that's a major hardship.
that's a hardship. Yeah, You know,
And a
it might be
big
sure change
hardship.
the zoning, but if they don't, it's still a hardship to justify a variance, I would say.
Yeah, so I feel like we gotta do the right thing and basically approve it, what they want to do here. I don't think it's out of line.
I
Maybe
agree with you.
next year, the board can bring the issue up again with the planning board and the council.
Yeah, we probably make a note of this and we can put it in our next annual.
Yeah.
I would make only one suggestion. I think, yes, we should probably approve it. The only one suggestion I have is, I think this might be an oversight in the letter from the zoning office, but I think the resolution should address both the building coverage and the impervious coverage. They're both pre-existing nonconformities, which will not change. The zoning requirements sheet clearly marks both of them as requiring variances, but I think that just wasn't picked up in the
Oh,
zoning
yeah,
office. So I think we ought to cover both the impervious and the building coverage in the resolution.
Yeah, that is checked off on the table. I don't think, generally, the non-conforming building coverage hasn't been.
That's
used as
exactly
a new
what
variance.
Danny
Coverage
told me.
Excuse me?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Hall. Danny told me since the building coverage is over, it doesn't trigger the variance.
Right, and his denial doesn't flag that, but the applicant zoning table does. And I guess that's what Jim's pointing out.
Right, no, I
Yeah,
understand.
and since the applicant's in front of us, we have the stats. Why don't we just touch on that to clean it up?
Yeah, no, we can say it's non-conforming, not changing, doesn't need a variance. The lot coverage does need a variance, I think, because that's always been the way it's been the practice, and but there's a hardship for that variance. I would suggest couching it in those terms.
Okay, so do we have anybody on the board that disagrees with this conversation? Everybody's okay with it, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so this is maybe going to be easier than you thought, Mr. Walls. So I think what I should do right now is go to the public, see if there's any members of the public want to weigh in on this. So is any hands raised for questions or a statement either in support or opposition to the application?
Yes, Ms. Cacaval.
Okay,
I just curious what the recalculations are.
can't hear you.
We can't hear you.
Well, I am.
No, too soft, need more volume.
You started, but then you faded out to zero, Kathleen.
No.
I can hear a faint whisper. Okay, we're gonna have to let her go because we have some technical issue there. Sorry about that. So, so we'll go back to the applicant now. Is there any last things you want to mention before we close that out?
Nope, just to say
I think
thanks
it's
again. What?
Go ahead, Ed. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say thanks again for hearing it after hours. Much appreciated.
Welcome. Mr. Bruno, did you have anything?
Just again, it's just a similar situation from a previous application. It's just the site is just undersized for the zone, and I hope the board considers it. Plus, it's a nice looking deck, so I hope you approve it.
Okay, good. So I'm gonna get a motion to approve this, no conditions based on how we reasoned this. So we got
Second.
Helen, and who was second?
Jim.
Jim is second. Okay, so now we'll need a roll call, please.
Mr. Dianio,
Yes.
Ms. Driscoll,
Yes.
Mr. Fitzsimmons,
Yes.
Ms. Carr,
Yes.
Dr. Paetzel,
Yes.
Mr. Foster,
Yes.
Mr. Santoro.
Yes. Okay, so congratulations, your application is approved. Best of luck to you.
Thanks again. Good night, all.
See ya.
Thank you, thank you. Mr. Santoro, I have a quick question. The next application that was tabled is my client as well. You said the 29th. Is that of April, that date?
Yeah.
3 weeks.
Okay, thank you.
And
so much.
presumably
I
you'll be
appreciate it.
first, because you're next in line. I don't know, but.
Yeah, well, stay tuned though, because this is a moving target, okay?
Yeah.
So you got the sense from that theater
I
application.
know. God bless you guys.
Okay,
Yep.
all
All
right,
right. Sounds great. Thank you so much.
all right, see ya.
Yep. Hey, Jim. Take care, Jim.
Hey, Gary, we did finish the annual report a while ago, right? I couldn't remember I was thinking about it. We did not.
Fran's shaking her head. I guess not. It went out.
It went out. We never discussed it. There was never a vote. We've been
Mhm.
pushing it because of the late hours and the other business that's been before us.
Okay, so everybody, if you want to dust that off for the next time, we really got to finish that thing and get that out before, okay? So we'll make sure to carve out some time at the end, right? Because it went out.
Maybe do it first so we actually do it.
Yeah, maybe, okay, so why don't we look to do that? We'll maybe do it first, all right? So just look at it and see whether it's okay, or if there's any changes you want to suggest.
Yeah,
probably fine.
my memo's dated March 9, and if anybody can't find it, well, I can resend it. Just make a request.
And that will be on the April 29th agenda, Joe?
Yeah, why don't you put that up there right up front, okay? Because it won't take much time at all, I don't think. All right, so I think, okay, so I think that's about it, guys, right? Anything you want to bring up? I just want to say I appreciate everything everybody's doing. We're doing double time and it's difficult, but I think we're doing some good things and I appreciate all the sacrifices everybody's making. So thank you. That goes for you, Mr. Hall. You're working a lot.
I'm sorry to slip. I didn't get you the resolutions in time, but that's a rare occurrence for me.
We know how busy you are. You're doing a lot. What the board doesn't see is how often we have to talk.
Yeah.
We spend a lot of time. So, all right. Can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
Oh.
Second.
Second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
Soon.
Good night, everybody.
Yeah.
Take care.
Night.
Good job all. Thanks, Fran.